More than a century ago, a sudden mutation began to decimate humanity, turning the dead into monstrous beings who waged war against the living. And this catastrophic event plunged the world into a terrifying purgatory. Amidst this chaos, individuals with exceptional talents, known as the Awakened, emerged as humanity's last stronghold to fight against these horrific beings. By the year 2145, the mutant beings had united globally into an unprecedented force, pushing humanity back to its final stronghold. Many Awakened perished in this battle. On the final battlefield in the capital, 3 Awakened were facing off against a massive mutant. The team was made up of a third-order psychic supporter, a mechanical archer, and a heavy hammer warrior. While the girl watched as the mutants kept advancing, the warrior noticed that most of his first and second-order comrades had already fallen. So, if things kept going this way, not even the third-order ones would last much longer. The mutant charged at the team, and the psychic supporter warned them to be careful, since the mutant had plenty of dirty tricks up its sleeve. The warrior charged forward with his heavy hammer, while the mutant extended its tentacles. The 3 were surprised when the mutant wrapped them up with its tentacles and lifted them off the ground. The warrior asked the supporter if she could give him a push, using her power so he could smash this thing to pieces. However, the mechanical archer pointed out that the mucus from third-order mutants could seal off psychic powers. That meant everyone was trapped. The mutant's mouth lunged forward to attack the team while the group was still restrained. The 3 were horrified and all thought they were done for. But suddenly, multiple attacks sliced the mutant to pieces. As the warrior broke free from the tentacles, he wondered what was going on. The 3 were released from the tentacles and landed safely on the ground. Everyone was surprised as they all looked in the same direction and saw the back of a person wielding a sword. It seemed to be the person who had saved them. When the mutant collapsed in front of the man, the team immediately recognized that this guy was one of the god-level talents and called him Master Ning. Ning warned the team not to be careless. The girl thanked Ning for arriving in time, and the archer also expressed his gratitude for the rescue. At that moment, Ning senses something. The archer shouts, "There are also mutants right above Master Ning's head. Be careful. It's a species we've never seen before." Our hero looks up, not intimidated by the size of the beast. The archer keeps warning everyone, "Hey guys, this one looks different." In the next scene, the story focuses on the monster. It had an eye in the middle of its chest, several tentacles instead of legs, horns on its head, and seemed to be wearing a mask. The creature stared intently at the humans on the ground. The guy with the hammer shouts, "How dare you stop right above Master Ning's head? I'll make you fly." He leaps at the beast, and his friend with the bow follows him. The monster was already in their sights. The eye in the middle of the creature's chest starts to glow, and the monster turns its body to face the 2 warriors. And then something happens. Seconds later, the 2 warriors were frozen in place. Both of them were writhing in pure agony. Their bodies were shattered. The girl was shocked to see her 2 teammates torn apart. She covers her hands with fire. "Damn you! I'm going to fight you!" But within seconds, the creature was already behind her. She was paralyzed, terrified. The beast's tentacles lunged at her. The girl managed to block some of the tentacles with her fists, but she realized this was the end for her. She closed her eyes, but nothing happened. Then she opened them again and saw her Master Ning cutting everything down. The monster backs off and the protagonist thinks, "This mutant isn't just any ordinary third-level monster, since it was able to take out 2 of the best third-level Awakened in a single moment." His gaze was sharp. His blades were evenly matched with the creature's claws. "Hey girl, get out of here first. I'll handle him." The young woman thinks, "In a battle of this scale, I'll only be a burden to Lord Ning. Lord Ning, be careful." And then she leaves. Our boy stands his ground, facing the creature. Noticing that the girl has moved away, he pushes her aside with his blade. However, his bone sword breaks in two. What? I only blocked one of its attacks and the sword already broke. Our boy didn't really know what kind of monster that was. And then he realizes something. The creature wasn't very happy. It looked at the little duck and started to roar. That was a level 4 mutant, a creature from legends and military tales. Ning didn't feel very shaken. He just thinks, to fight this guy, I have to use all my strength. Without a hint of fear or pressure, he starts walking toward the creature. The exchange of blows begins, and the protagonist lands on top of the creature, which didn't back down from a single one of our boy's attacks. The whole terrain started to get destroyed. Rocks were flying everywhere, until our protagonist stops and looks into the eyes of the creature, which stared right back at him. And then he thinks, what? This can't be happening. The monster simply pierced the protagonist's chest with its tongue. Ning's consciousness was fading, and his sword slipped from his hand as he fell backward. Our guy hit the ground with a loud thud. While lying on the ground, Ning wondered if the mutant he had just faced was a fourth-order one. Looking at the beast, Ning thought that it seemed like humans didn't know anything about the power of a fourth-order mutant. As the mutant loomed over our protagonist, clutching his heart, Ning realized he was about to die and had failed to protect that world. Seeing the mutant's tentacles coming toward him, Ning thought he didn't want it to end like this. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, the last thing Ning saw were the fierce teeth emerging from the mutant's tentacles and his own blood flowing. Meanwhile, in a command center, a man was stunned, unable to believe that the last hope for the Heikia war zone, the divine-level talent Ning, had actually been defeated. Watching the mutants wreak havoc, the man wondered how much longer they could hold out against such powerful forces. The man thought that if they had discovered Ning earlier and given him time to grow, maybe they could have avoided this whole nightmare. He slammed his fist on the controls in front of him, thinking that at that moment there was no other way. Clenching his teeth, he resolved that they would fight to the very end. The man announced that all the defense lines in the war zone had been breached and ordered the Third Order Awakened to arm the most powerful nuclear warheads. Countless helicopters were immediately dispatched to the war zone, while the Awakened jumped out of planes carrying the nuclear warheads. The man declared that even in death, they would die with dignity. The Awakened fell toward the mutants below them, and the man declared that humanity would continue to fight forever. The commander and the other personnel in the command center looked at the screen in front of them and saluted as the nuclear warheads exploded. Multiple explosions rocked the Heikia war zone. The entire land shook as the explosions filled the air. A few moments later, someone woke up to a morning news broadcast on November 6th, in the 61st year of the apocalypse calendar, mentioning that Project 337 for the Safe Zone construction plan was expected to arrive that day. To our boy's surprise, it seemed that he was alive. The broadcast went on to report that the 67th security zone of the East Sea had been attacked by sea beasts, claiming that the local survivors evacuated immediately. Ning sat up, wondering what had happened and whether he hadn't actually been defeated and wiped out. He seemed to be in a prison cell as someone was about to open it. His companion asked what they should do, mentioning that Ning couldn't participate in the test because he was infected with the virus. So they were keeping him from causing trouble later on. When they entered the cell, the other guy suggested killing Ning, since they'd already been paid. His companion agreed, saying that Ning was just a nobody and not a descendant of the Awakened. So, if he was eliminated, they could just say he turned into a mutant. With a weapon in hand, the guy suggested that Ning might survive if he stayed quiet. Ning realized that the scene unfolding was from 3 years ago. He had been reincarnated back to the day of the talent test and also realized that someone had interfered with him. Our boy tried to grab the soldier's gun hand, thinking they wouldn't succeed this time. The extras were scared, and one of them kept telling the other to shoot. He was panicking, but Ning had already managed to grab the gun and take it from the bastard's hands. Quickly, our protagonist moved forward and then struck the guard's stomach with his elbow, scaring the other guy. The guy who got hit was in so much pain that his eyes turned red, and he spat as Ning pointed the gun at him. The other soldier was terrified when he saw Ning aiming at him. The sound of the fight echoed through the place. A few moments later, the two bastards were lying on the ground, and only Ning, still holding the gun, was left standing. Our protagonist remembered that, in his previous life, he failed the test and survived by scavenging leftovers. Ning wandered aimlessly for 3 years before the army discovered he had a divine-level talent. But by then it was too late because the war zone had fallen and there were no more resources for proper growth. Ning remembered that, even though he reached the Third Order in just a few months, he wasn't even close to being the strongest, and yet he still threw himself headfirst into a fight with the Fourth Order mutant. Our boy apologized to his mother and little sister for not being able to save them, but now everything was different. Ning still had time. Our boy showed determination as he thought that as long as he passed the test and became the strongest, he could save the people who mattered most to him and end the apocalypse as quickly as possible. When Ning left the room, a system screen displayed a notification. The Final Judgment Sword God system has been linked to Enig. Mission: touch the test crystal within 30 minutes to unlock and activate the system's functions. If you fail, the system will disappear after 31 minutes. After completing the mission and unlocking the system, any sword-related skill will be enhanced 100-fold, thus transforming into a forbidden sword technique. Ning was surprised. That system was completely different from the standard apocalypse system that every awakened had in his previous life. So he wondered if this could be his golden opportunity. Ning thought that maybe because of reincarnation something had changed, but as long as it made him stronger, any system would do. Our protagonist realized he needed to hurry to the test and find out who was behind all of this. The system started a 31-minute countdown. Suddenly, more men arrived, and when their leader asked who was there, the man demanded that Ning raise his weapon. At that moment, they alerted the others that an infected person had escaped. The soldiers immediately surrounded Ning, ordering him not to move, and while the leader told our protagonist to put his hands where they could see them, Ning realized that the leader was a low-level awakened, while the rest were just ordinary people. Ning thought that the best move at that moment was to take the leader hostage and force him to get him out of there. Our guy moved so quickly while firing his weapon that the frightened men didn't even react. Ning struck the leader's hand to make him drop his weapon. His eyes looked threatening as he quickly closed in on the man. The leader was stunned. Meanwhile, Ning moved behind him in an instant. The man was horrified as Ning pointed a gun at his head. Our protagonist ordered the others not to move and warned them that if they did, he would shoot. The others demanded that Ning release their captain and not do anything reckless, because attacking the army in their safe zone was a capital crime. But Ning ignored their words and demanded that the captain take him to the testing square, giving him 3 seconds to decide. Otherwise, he wouldn't have his brains intact anymore. The others were shocked and questioned if Ming had gone crazy. Meanwhile, the captain asked Ming what he was doing and wondered why an ordinary guy wanted to take the test. But instead of answering the captain's question, Ning just pointed the gun even closer to his head. The captain asked him to wait because there might be some misunderstanding. So, he suggested that the two of them settle this. Ning simply ordered the captain to move, and the man noted that he was playing a dangerous game by betting on an awakening. That said, even if Ning became awakened, he still wouldn't be able to escape being eliminated. Meanwhile, in the testing square, the audience was watching closely as someone announced that 100 years ago, in 2042, the apocalypse descended and the world entered an era of catastrophe. They stated that only 1 in 10 people survived out of billions. And that was when the first generation of Awakened appeared and joined the military forces to save the region. They announced that it was an important day to test whether they possessed talents, and if they succeeded, they would become combat awakened, protecting the territory, while if they failed, they would leave the place to live an ordinary life. The person making the announcement was Liao, a representative of the military commission connected to the safe zone. He announced that they would begin the test with the descendants of the awakened. The people to be tested entered the area. While some were confident, others were anxious about the test. Suddenly, someone alerted the guards over the radio that an infected person had taken a hostage and was entering the testing area. Liao and the other military officers looked worried when they heard the radio. Meanwhile, at the entrance, the guards were surprised by something, and when they looked back, they were all thrown out of the entrance one by one. Other guards immediately rushed to the entrance to surround Ning, who was still holding the captain hostage. Gripping the microphone tightly, Liao ordered Ning to drop his weapon and surrender immediately. The guards were drawing their pistols as Liao warned Ning that if he didn't surrender, he would be shot on the spot. The captain looked terrified by the situation he was in. The man was even more stunned when Ning mentioned that he wasn't infected. But despite his claim, the guards were still on high alert, and one of them pointed his gun at Ning, ready to shoot. Our protagonist simply said calmly that he didn't want to disrupt the awakening ceremony, as he was only there to take the test. Liang Tan looked extremely irritated and exploded with anger. He kept shouting and ordered them to arrest Ning immediately. The guards quickly moved in and did as they were told. Suddenly, Ning dropped his weapon and mentioned that, according to Article 137 of the Safe Zone Regulations, awakened individuals had special rights. The captain and the guards were surprised when Ning started to release the captain and raised his hands. Ning stated that violating military orders was a serious offense, but significant contributions could cancel out such offenses. The captain quickly turned to punch our boy in the face and asked if he had awakened and thought he was special. Everyone watched as Ning fell to the ground. The guards quickly ran toward Ning to restrain him. The captain remarked that it was crazy to even dare mention the articles at a time like that. Liao quickly gave orders to execute that brat immediately. One of the guards quickly raised his sword and pointed it at Ning's head. But suddenly, the guards were interrupted when bright lights from an aircraft shone down on them. Meanwhile, people wondered why there was a supersonic psychic fighter jet there. Suddenly, its hatch began to open. The Supreme Commander of the Tianfo Military Zone, Grand Marshal Xiao Hai, a second order awakened, jumped out of the aircraft. He landed on the ground as if it was nothing after jumping from that insane height. One of the guards could feel the powerful oppressive force coming from Xiao and wondered why he was there when the test hadn't even started yet. Xiao stated that, given the military zone's desperate need for high-level awakened individuals, he wanted to see what the boy had to offer. Since Ning was willing to risk his life, they should see what the boy was really made of. The man also instructed the soldiers to execute the rebellious boy immediately if he failed to awaken. Ning, bold given the situation he was in, proposed that they organize the test so he could take it right away. Xiao ordered everyone else to disperse. As Ning walked past the guards and the other candidates, one of the guards couldn't help but wonder if they were really going to let that brat take the test. One of the candidates commented that the idea of a mere commoner becoming an awakened was completely absurd. It was even nauseating how the lower class always mistakenly assumed they had some kind of talent. But we already know the protagonist doesn't mess around. Ning stood in front of the giant testing crystal, thinking that in his past life everything had been manipulated and he failed the test by making one mistake after another. As he reached the testing crystal, the protagonist thought that this life would truly begin at that moment. The boy's hands were very close to the crystal. Then Ning finally thought that from now on, he would control his own destiny. The protagonist placed the palm of his hand on the testing crystal. The stone immediately began to emit a bright light. In no time, Ning was already radiating a powerful aura that filled the testing area. Both Xiao and Li Hao were surprised when they saw the intensity of Ning's aura. The other candidates were also shocked as Ning's aura kept intensifying and rising up toward the sky. At the same time, Ning was thinking that the infusion of spiritual energy felt familiar, so he wanted to try it out. As Ning continued to keep his palm on the testing crystal, the crystal announced that it was testing his talent.
Testing talent. Current talent level D.
The current talent was a low level, but the test wasn't over yet.
Testing talent. Current talent level C.
Ti Hao was surprised when the testing crystal kept evaluating Ning.
Testing talent. Current talent level B.
Ning's level was rising. Ti Hao wondered if that brat actually had high-level talent.
Testing talent. Current talent level A.
Ning thought that the spiritual energy was filling his organs, and it was an amazing feeling. In the next scene, Ning took on a threatening tone as he declared that the testing crystal could be infused with even more spiritual energy. His aura kept intensifying. Li Hao was stunned that a commoner could have level a talent and remarked that the odds of that happening were astronomical, since not even 1 in 10 million could achieve such a feat. With his arms crossed, Xiao pointed out that the final result of the test still hadn't appeared. Then he wondered if Ning could have an even higher level of talent. Ning's aura kept intensifying, and people pointed out that his level was still rising. Our protagonist was leaning forward at that moment, while he continued to press his palm against the testing crystal, which was still being continuously infused with spiritual energy. The audience started to panic at what they were witnessing. Meanwhile, Ning's eyes were already shining as he continued to be infused with spiritual energy. The aura, which was rising up to the heavens, became even greater.
Testing talent. Current talent level F.
At that moment, Ning's aura was so intense that the audience was starting to feel the pressure. Xiao realized that something was off, because the crystal still hadn't declared the end of the test, which meant the test was still ongoing. He thought that Ning turned out to be an S-level talent, an awakened third-order potential at such a critical moment. Ti Hao was surprised when Xiao gave orders to deploy ground armor troops for defense, in order to prevent mutant attacks. The man also gave orders to deploy patrol fighters, military assembly, to prevent any accidents and also to close off all routes to the square for non-military personnel and seal off the airspace above. On the other hand, Ning was shouting as the test continued to intensify. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind swept through the area and affected the jets hovering over the test site. A strong vortex of aura began to form, with the test crystal at the center of it all. Finally, the aura began to dissipate. Test completed. The audience was stunned, and all attention was focused on the test area. The guards had the same surprised expressions. Everyone watched in anticipation as the aura continued to dissipate, and the test crystal was about to reveal Ning's test level. Suddenly, Xiao dropped the tablet on the floor. He couldn't believe what Ning really was. As Ning began to remove his hand from the test crystal, Xiao thought the boy was a pureblood awakened. User's current talent, rank SS. Xiao was stunned when he realized that if rank S was reserved for a third order awakened, an SS rank could undoubtedly become a third order as well. It seemed like all of humanity was about to go through a radical change. Ti Hao was surprised when Xiao suddenly burst out laughing hysterically and mentioned that it was a good thing because the Tianfeng safe zone had produced an exceptional talent. One of the test candidates asked the others if they had seen all of that, pointing out that being praised by the Grand Marshal himself was like a dream come true. He had really acknowledged Ning. The candidate next to him pointed out that people change so quickly. Just a moment ago, people were saying that Ning was disgusting. At that, another candidate told him to stop talking, since Ning could very well be their superior in the future. Meanwhile, our protagonist looked a bit surprised as he thought that this talent was, in theory, the highest level among humans, a level SS talent. He hadn't expected that the upper limit of the test crystals would only be SS level. Don't forget that before he bit the dust, he was at the divine level. Our guy figured that the influence of an SS level was good enough for now. So, what really mattered at that moment was the mission from the Sword God system. Ning asked the system to show him the panel. Sword God system loading. Landimu. For having completed the mission, the system's current effect would increase the protagonist's skill power by 10,000% and could also unconditionally upgrade any sword series skill he learned to SSS level, with 2 additional effects. First, it would increase the storage of psychic energy by 10,000% and unlock all attributes, so they could be maximized without being limited by talent. Second, Ning could use any skill for free regardless of its level once every 48 hours. Looking at the system screen, Ning let out a sigh of relief and mentioned that the mission was accomplished. Our boy remembered that in his previous life, even with the efforts of the entire country, they were only able to gather 2 S-level skills and 1 A-level skill. But now, the Sword God system could casually upgrade skills to SS level. Suddenly, the system gave him another task. Learn any sword skill as quickly as possible. The reward is 4 free attribute points. The system also warned the protagonist not to reveal any information about the system to the outside world, as violators would be eradicated. Ning found it interesting and said he needed to think of a way to get a skill book to try out the system. Meanwhile, in reality, Xiao approached Ning and congratulated him on discovering his SS-level talent. He asked Ning to say what reward he wanted, promising that he would definitely fulfill it. But Ning didn't give an answer, as he was still focused on the system's task. Concerned, Ti Hao called out to the boy and stepped forward to poke him. Still not getting any response, Xiao noted that Ning wasn't used to being an awakened yet. Xiao laughed and put his hand on Ning's shoulder, saying that the boy was just like him. Xiao was stunned for a long time after his test. The man joked that the boy shouldn't get distracted and led him to his office for a proper conversation, which Ning agreed to after a moment. When they arrived at the office, Xiao mentioned that they almost made a mistake that would have caused the boy to fail the test. So, the man would take over the department involved and conduct a thorough investigation. After that, they would give him an explanation. Xiao also told Ning that he had decided to recommend him as the first choice for the seeding project. So, once the higher-ups confirmed, a third-level person would be assigned to mentor the boy, and he would have priority access to all resources and equipment. The man also said that they should talk about the boy's talent so they could help with his planning. Ning thought that he couldn't tell the man about the Sword God system, so he would just mention his original talent and talked about the mental series and the effect, which was psychokinesis. When Xiao heard that Ning was part of a mental series, he thought about it and admitted that Ning was quite rare. They would even need to bring in specialists from the capital to give the boy advice. At that moment, Xiao remembered to ask Ning what reward he wanted. Ning replied that he would like a sword class skill book, if possible. The man noted that this was actually pretty easy and immediately ordered one of his men to pick the highest level one and bring it over. A few moments later, the man returned with a tablet and said that this was the highest level book. Xiao instructed Ning to take it while the man handed the tablet to the boy. Ning thanked Xiao and said that if there was nothing else, he would like to go home for a while. Xiao mentioned that he understood the boy was eager to share the good news with his family. With that, the man ordered his subordinates to assign some elite soldiers to follow Ning 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, to ensure his absolute safety and instructed them to report any disturbance directly to him. Xiao also added that he wanted a report on the matter of Ning almost losing his test qualification within 24 hours, and instructed them to detain those involved, no matter who they were. Zhao's subordinates bowed to him and confirmed that they understood his orders. In the next scene, a military truck arrived at the safe zone of the 6 shelters. The people nearby were all curious when the military truck stopped in the area and someone got out of it. They saw Ning. The protagonist addressed the men escorting him as sirs and asked everyone to just stay there, saying he could go home by himself. As Ning walked away, people on the street recognized him. Someone asked if Ning had become someone important because he was in a military vehicle. Someone else mentioned that everyone should stay calm because with so many important people following Ning, he couldn't be just an ordinary person. A few moments later, as Ning was walking down the street, he spotted a little girl. The little girl was Xian, and he called out to her. Xian heard her name, quickly turned around, and was surprised when she saw her older brother. Images from his past life, of the moment when the girl was wiped out, flashed through Ning's memories. In his mind, the boy apologized to her for not being able to protect her. Ning ran over and hugged her, thinking to himself that he wouldn't let her suffer even the slightest harm in this life. Xian seemed a bit confused. The little girl mentioned that only a year had passed as she asked her big brother to confirm if he had been at the training camp. Xian also asked him how he got out. Tears streamed down Ning's face as he shared that his big brother had completed the test. Xian was shocked when she saw Ning's tears and asked why he was crying. To which our boy replied that it was nothing. He was just happy to see her again. Xian suggested that they should go home because their mother had been worried since he left, and Ning agreed, suggesting that they surprise their mom by walking in together. As they walked together, the little girl proudly showed Ning the bag she was carrying, saying she was lucky that day because she found some extra parts to trade for a pancake, and that our little hero would be able to eat really well that day. On the other hand, Ning called the girl silly, saying that they were going to have a feast, which made the little one excited. When she asked if there would be any meat, Ning assured her that there would definitely be as much as she wanted. A few moments later, they arrived home. Several delicious dishes were served on the table. Xian was so impressed that she told Ning everything looked really fancy. While they were eating, Ning's mother asked how the awakening test was going, because many neighbors had been asking about it. Ning proudly mentions that he passed the test and is now an awakened. With tears of happiness, the woman asked Ning if what he said was true. Ning confirmed it and immediately celebrated. Xian said that was to be expected from her big brother, since he really was her pride. The little one remembered to ask Ning if that meant they could have meals like this every day, and our boy spontaneously answered yes. It was already late at night and all the lights in the building were off. The dishes were in the sink, all stacked up. Xian and her mother were sleeping peacefully in bed. Ning smiled when he saw them sleeping. He carefully closed their bedroom door. Ning calls the system and says that they would proceed with learning from the skill book.
Mission accomplished. You have gained 4 attribute points.
Upon detecting the stored level C sword skill, the system immediately upgraded it, which was successful. The stored sword skill became an SS level skill called Sword Storm. The system placed the skill orb in Ning's hand. The Sword Storm Strike was a skill that consumed 4,500 psychic energy points. With it, she summoned an avalanche of sword strikes that included super speed, armor piercing, light destruction, light freezing, and disintegration properties. The system gave Ning a note to use the skill with caution, as its destructive power had been increased by 10,000%. Ning never expected a level C skill to be upgraded to SS level, because even with all his extensive experience from his past life, He had never come across anything so extraordinary. When he read that the skill costs 4,500 psychic energy points for a single use, our boy paused for a moment and checked something in the system. Ning saw that his current talent was at 0, and he only had 15 determination points and an internal reserve of 1,500 psychic energy points. When the protagonist checked the first order level, that level had a maximum of 20 determination points and 2,000 psychic energy points. Ning also saw that the second order had 30 determination points and 3,000 psychic energy points, while the third order had 40 determination points and 4,000 psychic energy points. Ning thought that, if he didn't count the equipment bonus, theoretically he would need to be at the third order to use the Sword Storm skill. But fortunately, his talent trait of being able to use a skill freely every 48 hours would come in handy, or else he wouldn't be able to use it even once right now due to its energy restrictions. At that moment, Ning realized that the tricky part was that the Sword God system didn't allow him to reveal any information related to it. So our boy couldn't explain the source of his abilities or his strength to others. All of this meant that before advancing to the second level, our protagonist needed to avoid using the Sword Storm skill in front of others. He looked at the orb for a brief moment and thought that he really wanted to try it out. Ning realized something and smiled when he remembered that the military zone had a lot of things he could use. Looking back, when the apocalypse emerged, the world became filled with spiritual keys. Because of this, various dungeons started appearing everywhere, and menacing mutants destroyed buildings and put people in danger. Awakened individuals dove into these realms to explore and face trials, and information about the dungeons was gradually mastered by humanity. The military handled this well and spent massive resources to research and develop test dungeons. In the end, they succeeded and developed them for real combat training for their troops. In that place, beasts would also attack awakened individuals who entered. But compared to natural dungeons, someone could leave the test dungeons if they encountered a fatal danger, which maximized safety. An example of this was that when an awakened person was about to be eaten by a mutant, seconds before the mutant could bite any part of them, the person would disappear. Back at the protagonist's residence, the door had just closed. Ning left, thinking about trying to use the ability in a test dungeon. He went to the test dungeon in the Tian safe zone. Ning was already in one of the chambers and asked the person in charge to open a low-level solo dungeon for him, saying that any type would do. The man recognized Ning as the one with the SS-level mental talent, and remembered that Xiao had given instructions to allow the boy access to the dungeon. But he asked Ning if he was going in alone, and if someone should accompany him. As Ning pressed a button, the man pointed out that, with his current strength, entering a dungeon alone would be very dangerous. Ning started to disappear and commented that he was just going for a quick test, so he would only be gone for a short time. He vanished completely from the man's sight. Seconds later, Ning reappeared and entered a test dungeon. The system notifies Ning that the current scenario is a city with a low danger level. The boy realized that the place was simulating the period right after the apocalypse outbreak. Looking at the system screen, Ning smiled when he saw that the weapon provided by the dungeon was a dagger. The boy entered and took the weapon from the system screen. As he picked up the weapon, Ning thought it was exactly what he wanted because the weaker the weapon, the easier it would be for him to test his skill. Our boy kept walking. Suddenly, he noticed a mutant turning the corner. His eyes lit up as he followed the monster with his gaze. The beast quickly charged toward him. Ning immediately jumped off the ground and kneed the monster in the head, wondering if it had come there on purpose. Our protagonist landed back on the ground, raised his dagger above the mutant's eye, thinking he was getting free points. Ning stabbed the creature's eyes with his dagger. The monster collapsed to the ground, sprawled in a pool of its own blood. As Ning walked away, He thought the dagger fit well in his hand and that, at that moment, the hunt had begun. The protagonist kept moving forward and headed for the exit of the building. The moment he opened the door, the boy came face to face with a huge red monster. Its teeth were sharp, almost like horns. The creature roared at Ming, who stood perfectly still. That would be one more beast to add to the tally. Soon its teeth were right in front of the boy's face. Like a bolt of lightning, Ning landed a precise cross to the beast's jaw. The red monster didn't stand a chance and collapsed to the ground, headless. Even though he still wasn't very strong, Ning's combat experience was really helping him out. That way, his hunt would be much easier. To truly test all his skills, Ning needed to find the mutant boss's room. But first he had to get out of that building, so he took an escalator up. The boss's room was just past the shopping street. Once outside, Ning came across several zombies. The boy noticed a certain evolution in the monsters. The beasts there were at the intermediate level of the first order, and the rank of that dungeon would soon change. Just as Ning thought he needed to get out of there, a zombie creature turned around and drew the attention of all the others toward the protagonist. The creature's mouths opened wide, just like the zombie beasts from the Resident Evil franchise. Ning moves forward to clear a path and cuts off one of the monster's heads, leaving the blue circular trail of his attack behind. The protagonist skillfully runs into an alley. The zombies don't lose sight of him, and soon even more of them join the chase. In moments, a massive horde of monsters was hot on Ning's heels. The number was increasing at an absurd rate. The boy spots a bus, and as he climbs it, Ning thinks it's not worth it to take out those beasts, since he'd gain almost no experience. But there was no other way. He needed to deal with this before moving on to the boss's territory. Ning jumps from the bus onto a circular platform. Careful, you've entered the boss area. As Ning looked around, several yellow warning banners circled the edge of the platform, letting Ning know that this place was dangerous. Warning, a first-order peak mutant devouring corpse is approaching. Ning hears a huge crash. When he turns his head, he sees a massive monster that looked like a giant beetle about to crush him. Speed was insane. Ning jumps to dodge the imminent attack. Normally, to deal with a first-order peak mutant, it would take 3 awakened of the same level. At that moment, a horde of zombies approaches the site of the confrontation. Ning grabs his blade. If this weren't a test, Ning wouldn't be so confident about facing a beast of that level alone. There were also countless regular zombies closing in. The monster attacks the protagonist again, destroying the entire ground beneath them. Even a first-order elite combat squad would have a hard time dealing with those creatures and making it out alive. Just to give you an idea of how insane this kid is, Ning covers his body with energy and charges straight at the monster. Despite all the odds, he was confident in his newly awakened abilities. The boy uses the creature's arm to gain momentum, launching himself as high as he can. He spins in midair, getting ready for a free fall straight toward the first-order beast. With his ability ready, Ning fires an intense, bright blue beam at the massive monster. That attack was the Sword Storm attack. Back on the ground, Ning was amazed. He had destroyed not only the monster, but the entire area with a single attack. Ning wouldn't even have realized how deadly his new ability was if he hadn't tried it out. With that ability, Ning could even defeat weak second-order mutants. He feels a bit scared when he thinks about the real strength he might achieve in the future. Congratulations, you eliminated a peak first-order mutant and received its experience points with a slight 50% reduction for being in a dungeon built by a human. That was already expected. Soon after, Ning receives a piece of equipment from the dungeon. In his previous life, the boy had never heard of anyone getting one of these items in the trial dungeons. He wonders if it could really be his. Seconds later, Ning successfully equipped the item. With that, he gained a 1-point increase in agility, and his hand agility was boosted by 15%. In this apocalypse, an ordinary awakened person wasn't able to get any equipment, no matter how worthless it was. And now he managed to get one. That was already a great start. Since the objective of the test had already been achieved, Ning began to leave the dungeon. Upon returning, he handed control back to the assistant and quickly left without saying a word. The man thought that Ning got scared when he encountered the zombies, and that's why he left the dungeon so quickly, but we know that wasn't the case. Suddenly, a man appears, yelling at the assistant. The man, annoyed, reminded the boy that he shouldn't authorize squads to enter the test dungeon, since its maintenance was complicated. But the assistant reports that no squad entered the test dungeon, so he didn't do anything wrong. The old man is in disbelief. After all, the First Order mutant was taken down, and the special item left in the dungeon was also dropped. That dungeon could only be completed by a Second Order awakened. But it's not like they would bother going into a simple test dungeon. The assistant has a crisis trying to process what had happened. He told his supervisor that the only person who entered the dungeon was the newly awakened rookie, Yi Ning. The man wonders if Ning's intention from the very beginning was to solo the dungeon boss. The guy was stunned by that thought. Ning returns to the slums. A vendor was advertising a weapon for sale for 5 bags of wheat, and others were selling some super crispy crickets at a bargain price. As he walks, Ning thinks that even though he was blessed with this mysterious support system, so he wasn't very confident. He knew about all the disasters that would soon haunt the rest of humanity, which was barely surviving. A year ago, the Tianfeng safe zone was reduced to ashes and became overrun with corpses. There was a massive outbreak of third-order mutants. In the current reality, the former Tianfeng district will be hit in 10 days by a huge horde of zombies. Ning thinks that his little sister and his mother are still in extreme danger. He needs to hurry and get stronger quickly. At the headquarters of the Central Zone Army in the capital, the big shots were talking about an SS-Rank talent, a pureblood, a truly promising seed for their new project. With the recent news of several third-order warriors lost, this was a tremendous find. Most of the staff wanted this boy to receive the best resources and all the support he needed for his perfect rise. They thought they would finally overcome the third-order gap and have the first fourth-order warrior, something never seen before. Not even the most powerful commanders had managed to reach that position. A man announces that Ning, the new SS-Rank talent, would become the seed of the number 1 cultivation project and ordered that the boy be brought to the captain immediately. But an old man opposed all of this. The other commanders didn't understand why. It made no sense to abandon such a promising talent. Standing firm in his decision, the man asks everyone if they read the entire report. The last part was the most important. This boy was an awakened with a mental attribute. In 70 years since records began, not a single third-order mentalist has ever appeared. The old man explains that this category had a weak psychic constitution and was only useful for support. They couldn't attack on their own, which was a huge disadvantage. That's why they shouldn't put all their resources into a failure. He also says that the success rate for Ning to advance to the fourth order was 0. That wiped all hope from the faces of the people at the meeting. A deadly silence filled the entire room, and in the end, the leader asked everyone to forget about this idea. He lowered the priority level for helping the boy. At the moment, they couldn't afford to spend such precious resources on a failure. The next day, Xiaohai received a report stating that Ning had been disqualified from the Awakening Project, and his priority had been reduced. The report said that Ning did not have the necessary ability to ascend to the third order level. Because of that, his rank was lowered to A or possibly even lower. Zhao's soldier asks his leader if they should continue with the benefits that had been granted to the young man. Zhao sighs and says that the higher-ups confirmed the boy didn't have the right potential, so they should call back the personnel who had been sent to protect him. As a result, the investigation into who interfered to prevent Ning from taking his test was also halted. In the end, they just cast the boy aside and didn't even realize the mess they were making. A soldier informs Ning of the good news, or rather, the bad news. He was excluded from the SEEP program and all his benefits were cut. The soldiers would return to the command center, and now he was on his own. Ning feels anxious. How could the big shots have evaluated his talent as only second tier? He should have the potential to rise up to the fourth tier. But then Ning remembers something. At that time, the Tianfeng zone was about to be attacked by countless zombies, and back then, mentalists were still considered useless. No one yet knew about the theory that warriors needed to cultivate their mental power to ascend to the fourth tier. That's why he was considered useless. Ning sighed in disappointment. Even here, in his second life, the big shots were failing to recognize his worth. He thinks about pleading his case and revealing that he was a time traveler, telling them everything he knew. But Ning quickly pushed that idea aside. It wasn't worth it. No one would believe his words without proof. The best way to solve the situation was for him to find a way to ascend to the third order as quickly as possible. That way, all these problems would resolve themselves. And with the sword god system, Ning was already much stronger than in his previous life. Finally, he realized it was time to roll up his sleeves and hunt mutants. After that, let's head to the wild forest. Hey, you with the rifle on your back. Want to join our team? Some recruits were talking to Ming. They were going to help the boy hunt first-order monsters since he was a rookie. But Ning didn't like that idea. The experience from hunting first-order psychic monsters was already low, and there was no way he was going to share his precious experience with them. The other warriors thought Ning was arrogant. They were just reaching out a helping hand and trying to be nice. Ning said they were idiots and were just getting in his way. With a sharp glare in his red eyes, he told the useless ones to get lost. That scared the other hunters. That boy had the eyes of a demon. Ning had the look of someone who had stared death in the face many times. Everyone thought the protagonist was a weird guy. After that, the protagonist walked deeper into the forest alone, leaving the other hunters behind. That was the forest where corpses decompose. It was the most dangerous place outside the safe zone limits of Tianfeng. Ning remembered very well that there were several first-order mutants there, and one in particular was about to evolve to the second order. Ning's plan was simple. He needed to kill 2 or 3 mutants on his own to go from level 0 to level 1. A little further ahead, Ning grabs his rifle. There was a beast approaching from behind him. He didn't want to finish off the beast with his sword storm ability, so he shoved his rifle into the creature's face. Since Ning also needed to improve his skills, he decided to fight it out the hard way. After taking down the low-rank beast, more of them started to approach. The protagonist charges at all of them. He wanted to make everyone eat their words about mentalists being the weakest of all the awakened. While fighting, Ning thought that it wasn't just him. Every awakened person needed to change their beliefs about mentalists, or it would be too late for humanity's survival. Several gunshots echoed through the forest. The guys who had invited Ning to join their group earlier started to worry about those shots. They wondered if it was that kid. One of them realized the shots were coming from near the demonic tree. They all decided to run. They didn't want to get screwed over because of some arrogant rookie. The noise would attract more and more monsters. Meanwhile, Ning was fighting against huge vines that seemed to have a life of their own. That was a mutant at the peak of the First Order. Soon after, Ming's sword system alerted him that another mutant at the peak of the First Order was very close by. This made Ning worried. One of the creatures was right in front of him. but the other still hadn't shown itself. The huge green demonic tree roared at Ning. This made the boy focus his attention on that beast. Right now there was a monster right in front of him, but where was the other one? Something was wrong. Without giving the boy any time to think, the monster launched several consecutive attacks at Ning, using its vines. The vines burrowed into the ground and quickly surrounded Ning, closing in from above. The creature moved so fast that, if Ning didn't have all the knowledge from his past life, it would be hard to deal with it. Ning backed away, but when he looked behind him, the creature was no longer there. It was already on top of him, ready to attack. Before it could crash into his body, Ning jumped. It was surprising that such a huge creature could leap with so much agility. Ning notes that the other monster still hadn't shown up. Maybe they were planning a sneak attack. The demonic tree attacks again. With no time to plan what to do, Ning decides to just face the only monster in front of him that he could see. Using his rifle like a bat, Ning strikes the beast's neck with all his might. As he backs away, something catches his attention. There was something stuck to the neck of the demonic tree, watching the protagonist closely with its small red eye. In a moment of distraction, the vines wrap around Ning's body. Before he's completely torn apart, the boy manages to pull away. His clothes were all ripped up. Ning found something really strange. He remembers that, in his previous life, the demonic tree was defeated by an elite squad. Along with it, there was a demon named Thunder, who stayed hidden the whole time during the duel. Ning had heard stories about this fight, and because of that, he didn't realize what was right in front of his eyes. Our boy thought the other demon was hiding in the forest, but no, he was actually hiding inside the body of the demonic tree. Every time the tree roared, it got an energy buff from the little demon. Even though it didn't last long, it was still a hassle to deal with. The tree's fighting style was the same every time. Get a buff, attack with the vines, then retreat to get another buff and attack again. Its size was the most intimidating thing about it, but now, knowing its tricks, he could work around the situation. The boy draws his blade, imagining that the demonic tree was about to lunge at him again. And sure enough, it tries to sneak up behind Ning, but since the protagonist was already expecting this, he waits for the tree's vines to slam into the ground. Then, he uses the tree's body to reach the little demon hanging from its neck. And just like that, Ning lands a fatal blow on the demonic tree and rips the little extender demon from the creature's neck. A purple sap starts gushing from the demonic tree's neck. Meanwhile, Ning held the little demon in his hands. Away from the demonic tree, the little demon was incredibly weak and helpless. Ning easily crushes the monster with his hands. Now only the big one was left. As Ning's body became covered in a faint yellow aura, the tree began to roar menacingly. Ning isn't intimidated and simply grabs his blade and charges forward, slicing through everything. Without the help of the little demon, the tree completely lost its power. Ning thought it was actually funny for a fight to end so easily, since he now understood how his enemies operated. Our protagonist grips his blade tightly as he walks toward the demonic tree. Before the boy could take another step, the beast lunges at Ning. Its speed was no longer as quick as it had been just minutes before. Wielding two blades, one in each hand, Ning prunes the little demon tree, slicing off all its tentacles. The monster is left bare and defenseless, trembling in front of Ning. Finally, after briefly staring down the monster, Ning drives his blades into the tree's eyes. The creature screams in agony before exploding and evaporating. Finally, the system announces that Ning has defeated the demon tree and gained some psychic experience points. He also obtained demon tree materials: white bark and white armor, a giant white claw, and a psychic fruit known as the corpse fruit. Ning looks at his status panel and reads the information about the corpse fruit.
Psychic corpse fruit. Effects. Permanently increases physical stat by 1 point and provides a 20% boost to life recovery speed. Does the host wish to use it?
At that moment, Ning was holding a small fruit that emitted a white mist in his hand. Yes, use it. Ning thinks that for many awakened, leveling up only slightly increases their attributes. But in his case, just by defeating 2 bosses, he managed to gain some pretty significant improvements. In the next scene, all the mist that had previously surrounded the fruit now begins to envelop the boy's body. Deep in the forest, the group from before senses that the boss's psychic energy has disappeared. They wonder if it was the work of a second-order awakened. However, there was no one else there besides them and that troublemaking boy. Everyone is shocked at the thought that he defeated that demon tree all by himself. Half an hour later, inside Tianfeng's safe zone, Ning goes to a shop that traded in mutant materials and also sold items for hunters. Ning puts his bag full of monster items on the counter and asks the shopkeeper how much all of it would be worth. A blonde girl quickly appraises the items. They were perfect items from first-order monsters. So Ning could get about 697 credits. Since it was the protagonist's first time at the shop, the girl says she could pay 700 credits so they could do business again in the future. Ning thinks that amount would be enough to buy 200 kilos of meat or hire a squad of 7 or 8 mercenaries. It was a staggering amount. That said, he accepts the payment. The girl transfers the credits to Ning's account and asks him to check it right away. Meanwhile, the shop owner approaches the boy. He also hands over his card, saying that they also had equipment, supplies, firearms, and even made custom gear. As he takes the card, Ning asks the man if they had any skill books with sword techniques. He smiles and says that they only had D-rank books. In fact, throughout all of Tianfeng, the boy would only find books ranked D or lower. Promptly, the blonde woman shows 3 sword skill books they had. There was triple slash, furious slash, and quick slash, all D-level. Ning examines their effects. If you really thought about it, all those low-rank skills were useless. Even with the power of the sword system, Ning had to be careful when choosing a skill, since its effect depended on the effect of the base skill. If he were to evaluate his acquired skill, Sword Storm, despite its immense attack power, its activation was slow and its attack area was inflexible. When Ning fought against agile monsters in the future, they could easily figure out his attack pattern and escape as soon as he started to prepare. While he was thinking, the shopkeeper asked Ning if he liked any of the skills. The man even offered to contact other stores in other cities to obtain C-rank skills. But of course, there would be an extra handling fee. Even B-rank skills could be acquired that way. Ning said it wasn't necessary. He happily announced that he would take the quick slash skill, rank D. The boy was eager to see how this skill would turn out after he leveled it up. The old shopkeeper was full of doubts. The boy seemed happy to acquire such a trash skill, even though he was selling top-tier items. He thought Ning was just some rich kid burning money, but as long as he paid, it was all good. The man announced that it would cost 600 credits, and so Ning bought the skill. The blonde woman put the tablet in a small box. Ning made the payment and quickly left the store. The boy checks his account. He still had 100 credits left. With the rest, he planned to buy some treats for his mother and little sister. Back home, the little one was ecstatic to see so much delicious food. There were even small snacks, something considered a luxury these days since poor people only ate to survive, and some didn't even have that. Ning simply said that things like this would be common from now on. She could eat as much as she wanted. At night, Ning watched his little sister sleep. His mother was at work, and everything was very peaceful. He went to the kitchen to learn his newest skill. Ning asked the system to help him, and soon countless blue balls of light filled the room. Seconds later, the system announced that the skill had been successfully learned and upgraded to S rank. The system reported that now he only had room to learn 2 more skills. So he can't learn unlimited skills like I thought. They nerfed the boy, guys. Ning opened his eyes and looked at the system panel to find out how his new skill worked. Like the other skill, this one also consumed 4,000 energy. With this new skill, Ning's strength and agility would increase by 600%, and the impact power of his attack was completely unpredictable. Ning was satisfied. This was exactly what he needed. Soon after, he ran into another dilemma. Ning needed to test his new skill, but now he could no longer use the test dungeon, since its benefits had been revoked. Opening a drawer that contained a gas mask, the boy comes up with a great idea. He puts on protective clothing and a gas mask, thinking that there was a perfect place for him to test his new skill. 2 hours later, on the outskirts of the old city of Tianfeng, Ning arrives at a place with thick fog and several strange mutant green plants. Surveying the area, Ning thinks that this is the right place. He was in a neighborhood called Jianwan. Even in Ning's previous life, that neighborhood remained unexplored. Once, while snooping around that neighborhood, Ning encountered a very agile mutant. It also had a very valuable blue item. Because he spent too much time lost in thought, something grabbed the boy's feet. Some strange plants started moving toward him. Along with them, a zombie appears from behind and lunges at our boy. It opens its mouth and huge tentacles with teeth shoot out. Quickly, Ning grabs his dagger and lands countless strikes on the creature. The monster is easily defeated and falls to the ground. Ning felt relieved since the monster in question was just a zombie. If he had been ambushed by a climber, things would have turned out very differently. Fighting with that toxic slime covering the area made the duel many times more dangerous. That's why he needed to find a more suitable place for the fight, and fast before the monster could track him down. While our protagonist wandered through the ruined city, a creature appeared, watching him as it crawled between the buildings. In the next scene, something lunges at Ning, who quickly jumps, throwing his body backward. But this was actually a memory of when the creature he was now searching for had ambushed him in the past. Ning runs, stepping through that toxic slime, while the plants in the area targeted him. Ning realizes that he was much faster now. As he gets close to the huge toppled buildings, the boy remembers that this area was where the climber used to stay. So he must be nearby. Looking to the side, Ning remembers something else. He had passed through this exact spot in his previous life. With his dagger, he cuts and bends some iron bars. He was setting up traps that would help him in the fight against the beast he was hunting. In the midst of this, the huge creature appeared, looking like a giant worm with terrifying teeth. That was a hidden elite monster. The creature charges at Ning. The boy dodges easily. That wasn't the creature Ning was looking for. So, he needed to finish off that beast quickly before the climber showed up. The worm with teeth ends up charging right into the trap that Ning had set up, and starts howling with the iron bars stuck in its face. The trap really worked. Ning gets ready to catch the monster off guard. But then, something starts leaping between the buildings behind him at an incredible speed. It was the mid-level second-order demon that our boy was looking for to test his skills. Ning stared at the giant worm and then at the other creature that looked like a wingless dragon. That situation was unexpected. Now he would have to fight 2 high-level monsters on his own. At the exact moment the protagonist drew his blade from its sheath, the half-dragon creature charged at him. Ning jumped, and beneath his feet, the creature slithered along the ground. The boy wondered why the creature was even faster than it had been in his previous life. However, at that moment it didn't matter. According to Ning's experience from his past life, the closer he was to the monster, the easier it would be to dodge its attacks. The boy just needed to be careful with the creature's main ability. The situation wasn't looking too good. It would be pretty tough to fight both the elite monster and the toothy worm at the same time. As he dodged the elite monster again, Ning saw the toothy worm coming straight at him. He managed to block the monster's attack, but realized that the trap from earlier had been a terrible idea. That made it even harder to fight the creature head-on. If he was too slow, Ning would end up getting pierced by the iron rods. Back on the ground, Ning thought that even though he was there to test his new ability, things had really gotten complicated. He wondered if it would be better to just finish everything quickly using his sword storm attack. But he wouldn't have enough time to charge up his attack. The climber was just too fast. In the end, the only skill he could use was his new ability, Light Rift Attack. However, he would only be able to hit a single monster with that attack since it was a strike of a sword. The two monsters don't give the protagonist any more time to decide what to do, and are already preparing for another joint attack. At that moment, Ning remembers something important that he had overlooked. His new attack was just as powerful, the Storm Sword. Maybe this attack could actually hit both monsters at the same time. Ning starts running toward the fanged worm, while Climber chases after him. When both monsters were in the same square meter, just inches away from grabbing the boy, Ning jumps up holding the two blades he had in his hands. In an instant, a terrifying power filled the entire area. The beasts that had been chasing Ning were caught in the attack. Both were thrown back as their bodies were completely sliced apart. Ning landed exactly where the attack struck the ground. The ground was left marked with a mysterious symbol that showed the immense power of that strike. Behind him were the shredded remains of the beasts. In the end, the boy liked this new ability. However, he would have to restrain himself so as not to cause too much damage the next time he used it. Sheathing his blade, the protagonist mentions that this ability still needed to be studied a bit more. Seconds later, countless system notifications alert the boy about the items obtained from the successful hunt. Ning thinks the rewards are great. The risk was definitely worth it. At the Celestial Wind Military Guard Station, the man was frightened. His system had detected abnormal energy fluctuations never seen before. He orders the alarm to be sounded. Several men head to the station according to the readings. Someone of the Third Order launched a massive attack in the suburban area. The scariest part is that there was no record of any level 3 warrior visiting the region. So they started an investigation. 20 minutes later, some scientists were at the area where Ning had fought the creatures earlier. They were analyzing the traces of energy that still lingered in the place. A device measured that the energy released in the attack was 4,000. Such overwhelming power could only be unleashed by an awakened at the peak of the 3rd level. Or it could even be someone who has already reached the 4th order. This exceeded the authority of those men's department. So they decided to report what happened to the commander immediately. Back in the city's safe zone, Ning checks the stats of the new equipment he obtained. That was the Sharp Wind Claw equipment. This equipment increased strength by 2, agility by 30%, and most importantly, inflicted 180% damage to the opponent for 2 seconds. Its abilities and attributes were outstanding. The boy planned to sell the item for 60,000 credits. He thinks that at least that's how much it would have cost in his previous life. When he got home, Ning immediately listed the item on the Warrior Sales website, and the very next second someone was already interested in the equipment. This was so unexpected that Ning was startled. The mustached man sent a message to the boy saying he wanted to buy the Sharp Wind Claw and asked if he could give him a friendly price. Ning quickly typed back that the price was 60,000 credits and he wasn't going to negotiate. The mustache guy asked if the protagonist could accept weapons, food, or equipment as part of the payment. First, the boy asks how many credits he currently has. The mustache guy replies that he has 30,000. The protagonist realizes that he won't have any trouble selling the item. The man asks Ning to add him as a friend so they can negotiate privately. Realizing that the mustache guy really wanted the item, the boy immediately states how he would like to receive the payment. The credits couldn't be less than 30,000. As for the other items, even though the equipment was good, Ning only wanted sword-related skills. He also mentions that psychic fruits would be great for making a good deal. In front of the computer, the mustached guy, who actually didn't have a mustache, thinks to himself that he has to get that item at any cost. He looks back and orders his men to check the inventory and set aside anything related to swords. The recruits shout in unison, following the orders. Quickly, the guys are back. They brought all the equipment they found. The mustached guy knew that wouldn't be enough, but he already planned to make the first deposit to ensure the claws would really be his. The man shouts for the recruits to gather all the money, and fast. In moments, Ning receives part of the payment. This showed the protagonist that the mustache guy was really interested in the claws. Happy, Ning thinks that in his past life, his mother and little sister had a miserable life, but in this life they would have the life of queens they so deserved. The mustached guy sent his last message to the boy, announcing that the rest of the money would be collected and without delay, Ning would receive the remainder the next day. The next day, the protagonist goes to the real estate agency that offered the fanciest homes in the city. He is greeted by a woman who asks what they were looking for. Ning, who is standing next to his little sister, asks the lady to show them the best residence they had. He also asks her to be quick because he was in a big hurry. The woman judged the boy because he was wearing pretty worn-out clothes. He probably didn't have much money, at least not enough. She says that the best house there costs 40,000 credits, but he could go to a simpler place where he would find more modest homes for 2,000. Our boy quickly shows that he was loaded with cash and said he would transfer the 40,000 right away. The woman doesn't believe him and asks him to make a payment directly to her. After all, he looked poor, talked like someone poor, and she was sure the boy was just wasting her time. When he tries to make the payment, it doesn't go through because Ning only had 13,000 credits in his account. The woman turns away angrily, but Ning asks her to wait a few more minutes. Very soon, he would receive the final payment from the mustached guy, and in moments he gets a message. The mustache guy managed to send him almost 40,000 credits. He wanted to pay the rest with psychic fruits and asked if Ning agreed to that. In the end, he made a deal with the mustached guy and then shows the route attendant that he had just received another 39,000 credits and would like to make the payment. Both the attendant and Broca's little sister were completely shocked. And just like that, the woman did a complete 180 and showed Ning where he could make the payment. The boy found the situation strange and asked if she would do it quickly. Otherwise, he would look for someone else to help him. The woman quickly guided them to the VIP room to finish the negotiations. With the payment completed, Ning and his little sister finally arrived at their new home. The little girl could hardly believe her eyes, and Ning told her that now she wouldn't have to look for food in the trash anymore. He handed a key to the little one and asked her to welcome their mother when she arrived. He needed to take care of a few things. At night, Ning was running across the rooftops. The military had already cleared most of the area around the city, so he needed to act fast to hunt high-level beasts before anyone else. The only place he had in mind was the Corpse Academy, the only place where he could still get a psychic fruit. There were many level 2 monsters in that dungeon, not to mention the extra rewards he would get for wiping them out. Since no one had cleared that dungeon yet, Ning was thinking of taking all the rewards for himself. Soon Ning entered the dungeon's boundaries. He stopped in front of the Corpse Academy. The recommended level to enter the dungeon was level 2. Even though he was only level 0, the boy decided to move forward, so he entered the dungeon's domain, and besides him, there were 14 other people there. In one room, a blonde side character was acting like the leader. The monster in question was of the second order, and with all 14 of them fighting together, it would be a piece of cake to take it down. A girl thinks the guy is manly and asks for his protection. The guy looks at the woman with a sly grin, already thinking about ulterior motives. A few seconds later, he starts leading the group. Suddenly, the protagonist runs past everyone. They notice that the boy was only level 0 and wonder if the protagonist was just trying to tag along. A lot of them were worried that that guy would mess everything up, but the blonde keeps everyone in line. There was nothing a level 0 could do anyway. All they needed to do was move forward, stay in formation, and keep focused. Quickly, Ning runs up a flight of stairs. At that moment, he sees a woman who asks for help, but the boy just takes her out and moves on. Ning remembers that the same thing happened in his previous life. His friends had helped those people, thinking it was a mysterious dungeon quest, but in the end they were all devoured. In reality, they were disguised creatures. Ning planned to find the boss of that place as soon as possible. That would be the easiest way to get good equipment and move forward. In the small corridor, the group from before was advancing in turtle mode. They wanted to avoid the low-rank monsters and attack the boss as soon as possible. After defeating the boss, all the monsters in the area would receive a berserk status buff. The timid group planned to eliminate the boss and then hide until the buff wore off. Soon the group spots something. It was the creature surrounded by a powerful red aura. They thought that was the leader. The creature quickly notices the intruders in its area and gets ready to attack. The blonde guy steps forward. He uses his shield and tries to advance. He tells the others to start attacking. The blonde guy planned to defend against the beast's attacks until they were ready. The group quickly gets ready and everyone starts launching their attacks. The blonde guy was still face to face with the beast. At that moment, the group's attack advanced perfectly toward the creature. Seconds later, the beast is hit head-on. The combo of attacks didn't defeat the creature, and the blonde guy, lacking any sense, thought that hitting the creature with his shield would help increase the damage. He couldn't have been more wrong. The beast went berserk and charged at a member of the group. He started calling out for his leader, who was that blonde guy. He was in a panic. The guy tells everyone to stay calm and attack with another combo of coordinated strikes, while he tried to hold off the beast's attacks with his shield. Meanwhile, Ning arrived at the place where he was supposed to meet the butcher mutant, but everything was very quiet. He decides to check the mission. However, the mission to kill the butcher mutant was no longer available. Ning broke out in a cold sweat at the thought that someone had already stolen his prey. Back with the group, the second boss, who was wielding a huge blade, appeared right behind one of the warriors and struck him with deadly precision. The guy was thrown aside and the group went into a panic. In the back, the blonde guy who claimed to be the leader was protecting himself with his shield. He smiled as he thought that the second boss had appeared because he accepted the quest without the others noticing. His plan was to make everyone on his team fight like crazy. He knew that everyone would be eliminated, but by then the boss would have low HP and he could land the final blow himself and take all the rewards. He shouts blaming Ning, saying that the damned level 0 accepted the butcher's quest. At this moment, we find out that the name of this fraud is Gao. He announces that he would never let that rookie win. He tells the team to regroup to get ready to launch another wave of attacks. At that moment, both creatures are drawn to the energy of the shield. He tells everyone not to worry, that he would draw the monster's attention. The group is impressed by Gao's courage. Little do they know that he has set up a grave for the whole team. In the background, Ning was watching everything. He realized that Gao wanted to blame him and take all the equipment for himself. It actually wasn't a bad plan, but unfortunately, he picked the wrong person to mess with. There were 2 more boss mutants in that dungeon. One was a level C, the Withered Mutant, and the other was a level B, the Lord of Corpses. Wielding his chipped sword, Ning calls the 2 to join in on that little party. The 2 monsters quickly charge at the protagonist. At that moment, the boy jumps off the building, taking both monsters with him. Ning was in free fall with the 2 monsters hot on his heels. And Gao sees the level 0 boy approaching. Within seconds, Ning lands right next to Gao. The man had no idea why Ning was there. Seconds later, the blonde guy's team members started screaming for help. They were being slaughtered. Several of them had been captured. Gao looked at everything horrified. Then Ning taps him on the shoulder and asks if he didn't want to play. It would be way more fun to fight 4 bosses at once. Didn't want to say it, but the guy is Scree Gao, sweating bullets, yells and asks if the boy accepted the other missions. Ning just says that he had to live up to the size of the lie Gao put on his shoulders. Gao pushes the boy's hands off his shoulder and says he's completely insane. The guy was planning to mess around with those 2 bosses and defeat them after his group got wiped out. But now the level 0 kid ruined all his plans. Running and crying, Gao yells for the team to run to the rooftops of the school building. Everyone feels uneasy about this strange strategy. Even so, they decide to follow their scatterbrained leader. Ning found it pretty convenient that everyone was hiding in the school building. When they reached the rooftops, the group was startled to see that Ning was already there. Angry, one of the warriors charged at the boy. Since Ning wanted to be eliminated, he'd make it happen quickly. With a subtle move, Ning easily dodged the hothead's attack. The guy couldn't understand how a level 0 managed to dodge his attack, since he was level 2. Ning asks the guy who tried to attack him if his friend had been eliminated by the butcher, and then reveals that he wasn't the one who accepted the mission. This made the group furious. Everyone started yelling at Gao, asking if he had accepted the mission on purpose. They realized that Gao just wanted to take advantage of everyone's abilities, and in the end, keep all the rewards for himself. Afraid, Gao still insists that he didn't accept the second mission. He firmly claims it was the level 0 kid, and still trying to lead the team, he says that the monsters would arrive soon. They needed to defend the place in order to survive together. The women on the team found this suggestion hilarious. There was no way they could protect themselves from 4 second-order mutants. Not to mention that the Corpse Lord was almost advancing to the 3rd level. One of the warriors shouts, telling everyone to shut up. Except for one mutant that would come from inside the building, the other 3 would have to climb up to reach them. He suggests splitting the team into 2. One group would stop the 3 bosses outside the building from advancing by launching consecutive attacks, while the other would block the entrance where the fragmented woman and her entire horde of zombies would attack from inside the building. At that moment, the fragmented woman's mutants already show up. The guy with the hammer thought that if everyone worked together, everything would turn out fine. After all that, they would finish off Gao and that level 0 bastard. Seeing everyone's motivation, Ning wonders if they could really hold out until the end. Soon everyone takes their positions. One group launched countless attacks to keep the 3 boss monsters on the ground from advancing. What they didn't anticipate was that they wouldn't be able to hold back the monsters, and soon the creatures started climbing the building with their huge claws. The 3 advanced together. The group in charge of the 3 bosses shouted that the plan wasn't going to work. They couldn't hold back the beasts. The situation was already critical, and the other group wasn't doing any better against the beasts from the fragmented woman either. Everyone was almost out of energy. Hidden in a corner, holding his shield, Gao thought everything was lost. No one would be able to get out of there alive. Ning started to smile and said that the time had come. He said loud and clear that anyone who wanted to survive should jump to the next building with him. At that moment, Ning was at one of the edges of the rooftop, ready to fall backward. Then he just jumps and gets ready to unleash one of his evolved SSS-Rank attacks. An immense energy started to pour out from his body. The team of warriors from before couldn't believe their eyes. There was no way that 0-level kid could have that kind of power. Then, one of them remembers that the protagonist told them to jump off the building, but only if they wanted to live. He runs out in a panic, and then everyone starts running off that rooftop. Gao watched the group jump without fear, but since he had a defense-type power, he was peeing his pants. Gao was way too scared to jump, but if he stayed there, it would be certain death. Ning had already finished all his preparations. Gao was still standing on the rooftop with his shield up in a defensive stance. At that moment, an immense power starts sweeping across the entire rooftop. That was the Sword Storm ability. Even before the attack reached Gao, his shield was already falling apart. The pressure was overwhelming. The monsters had just reached the rooftop and were also caught up in the chaos. The warriors from before, who were in free fall, watched everything in shock. That really wasn't an attack power of a level 0. And for those who forgot, level 4 of the Fourth Order would be the most powerful warrior of all time. But then the tables turned. The protagonist soloed everything, still at level 0. Back on solid ground, Ning greets everyone and asks if they're all okay. The guy who attacked Ning earlier bows and apologizes for not recognizing the young man's strength. That made his group embarrassed by his behavior. The guy with the hammer also flatters the protagonist, talking about that loser he mentioned earlier. He definitely wasn't talking about Ning. The protagonist says he doesn't care about any of that and turns to leave. Before going, Ning asks the group to find the zombies that escaped and finish them all off. Everyone bows, saying they would do it right away. In the end, the protagonist leaves. The group's archer looked at Ning with a perverted gaze, saying that Ning was really young and actually very strong. There he goes. The girls thought that attitude was pretty revealing. Meanwhile, Ning was looking for a fragment that probably fell from the body of the fragmented woman. The area was completely destroyed, and it would be hard to search everything. Until Ning sees something shining with the blue hue. As he gets closer, he realizes he found it. It was the equipment called the Skull of Resentment. To use it, Ning would have to press it against his forehead, and that way he would get a significant boost to his psychic power. Ning thought that equipment was perfect. The only reason psychic power had been ignored until now was because no one could channel the energy and use it effectively. But of course, Ning was going to show everyone that it was possible. The protagonist presses the skull against his forehead. It dissolves into small balls of light and soon begins to merge with Ning's body. The protagonist screams. The energy seemed to be destroying his entire being to the point where he started drooling. Seconds later, the fusion was complete and Ning was overflowing with energy. The boy immediately tests his new ability. With his mental power, Ning lifted a huge rock using only the power of his mind. And with a single word, he shattered the rock into thousands of pieces. Ning moved each of the fragments with incredible skill and hurled them all at the ground as if they were piercing bullets. Ning thought this power was really impressive. As soon as he leveled up, his mental power would evolve even further. After that, he used his psychic power to scan the surroundings. He sees the group from before massacring the zombies. The guy with the hammer was about 12 meters away, and Ning could see everything perfectly. The girl with the ice power was almost 30 meters away, freezing all the monsters. Ning saw everything as clear as day. Suddenly, the ability faded. It seemed that 29 meters was his limit, but for now, that would be more than enough. The next moment, Ning receives a message informing him that all the monsters in the dungeon have been eliminated, and the rewards would be distributed based on everyone's contribution. The protagonist was teleported to the front of the school, and since he soloed all the bosses, he earned several rewards. The boy planned to sell the items later. After all, he was the man of the house and needed money to keep his family living well. A blue-level piece of equipment ended up catching the protagonist's attention, and he decided to equip it. The item was called Thunder Boots, and with it, Ning could increase his agility by 10 points. Without wasting any time, the boy immediately equips the item. That was truly a great achievement. After that, Ning went to the advancement center. The attendant asks what kind of mission Ning would like. The protagonist says that he wants to do a level-up mission. The attendant, who was practically falling asleep, asks Ning if he meant from level 0 to level 1. Looking at the available mission board, Ning requests all 4 level 2 missions that the center had. This startles the woman, and she immediately wakes up and looks at the boy much more seriously. The woman wonders if she was dreaming or if he was actually crazy, just after requesting the 4 level 2 missions. When she checks the system, she sees that Ning was actually at level 0 and assumes she must be dreaming. At that point, Ning was already running out of patience to deal with that attendant. Speaking seriously to Ning, she explains that there was a severe punishment for warriors who failed their missions and asks if Ning didn't know about that. She also asks to measure the boy's energy. Ning approaches an energy orb and places his hand on it. While his energy is being measured, the boy answers the woman's question. If he failed a mission, 50% of his abilities would be deducted. And if he failed all 4, he would either become useless or be done for. While the protagonist's energy was being measured, the energy stone exploded and announced that the warrior's rank was at the peak of the first level. In the end, he asks the attendant if he could only take the missions. Shocked by what happened, she immediately lets the boy do as he pleases. In the next scene, someone appears behind the protagonist and asks if he isn't the SS-Rank rookie. Ning turns around with a puzzled look on his face and then sees a muscular guy. His name was Huang, captain of the Celestial Wind Investigation Unit. He found it funny that a young level 0 was there, at that hour, trying to level up. Especially a useless awakened one with a mental power category. The attendant tries to correct Huang. Ming was no longer level 0. At that moment, countless soldiers report to the captain. There were traces of a level 3 battle found at Corpse Academy. They were going to conduct an emergency investigation, and Huang would be in charge. He didn't want any slip-ups to happen. Soon everyone leaves, and the protagonist is left there, laughing. He just wanted to see Huang's face when he found out that the useless mental power guy did it all. In the next scene, a squad heads to the Celestial Wind Zoo, which had now become nothing more than a paradise for the undead. One of the soldiers asks his leader why they weren't cooperating with the group from the Celestial Wind Safe Zone. In recent days, many troops had been reassigned to the same place, and the soldier thought everyone was looking for the same thing. But the commander, whose name was Ring, said that wasn't the case. In fact, they had only come there to get a blue-level piece of equipment for his son. And as for the troop movements, it was because of a boy, but the man reveals that it was determined that Ning wasn't worth it. Even though he was an SS-level talent, the boy was just an awakened one with a useless mental power. The group had heard that there was a beast about to evolve to level 3 in that area, and that's why they were there. The captain was uneasy. That information seemed to be false. He couldn't sense any monsters. But a soldier tells the commander to relax. He was 100% sure he heard correctly, and soon the commander's son would have a fine blue-level piece of equipment. So, the group moves forward to track down the lead. Our boy Ning was also in that same area. One of the missions he picked up was located there, in the Paradise of the Dead, and he wanted to get it over with quickly. He uses his mental power to scan the surroundings. That's how he runs into the group from before. This was bad. Maybe they were after the same monster. The boy analyzes that 3 of the awakened were rank A, probably at the 2nd level. Soon, he locks eyes with the group's commander, who realizes someone was watching his team. With a stern look, Ring stares at our boy. That scared Ning. He quickly stopped using his psychic scanning ability. The guy almost caught our boy in the act. Ning realized this mission wouldn't be easy. His prey was about to be stolen by these hunters. So the boy had to act fast. In moments, the group of hunters found themselves surrounded by a 2-headed corpse hound and a bloodthirsty bear. The guy with the bow made the first attack. Everyone was supposed to attack and keep the beasts away from the commander. Soon, a woman and a guy move forward to fight the corpse hound. In the midst of all this, a deafening and bloodthirsty roar echoes through the area. Commander Ring senses this murderous pressure and assumes the beast is a corpse tiger. Soon, a huge red creature was face to face with the commander. The man gripped his spear, channeling his energy throughout his entire body. With a wide grin, Ring announces that it was about time for the beast to show up. Both charge at each other, while Ning stays in the background, assessing the fight. The battle was intense and fierce. Ning didn't think it was very ethical for the group to steal his prey, but he also couldn't interfere in the fight of a level 3 awakened. With his sharp gaze, Ning realizes that in the end, Ring wouldn't be a match for the corpse tiger. The battlefield was in chaos and the group split up to fight the three monsters. Ning checks his system. He only had one chance to use his sword storm. The monsters were too far away for him to attack now. There would be too many variables. He needed to get closer and wait for the perfect moment for a sneak attack. The fight between the captain and the tiger was still intense, but the tiger started to falter. Seeing an opening, Ring leaps and lands a clean strike on its body. The force of the blow even reached the protagonist, who raised his hand to shield himself. Not giving the beast a moment to recover, the commander tries to strike the tiger once more before it could regain its strength. He drove his spear into the creature's head, making it scream in agony. With the beast on the ground and its body covered in blue lightning, the commander steps back. In the middle of his leap, the guy realizes that something is wrong. The huge red tiger attacked the man in midair during his jump. Ring raised his spear just in time to defend himself from the attack. However, the tiger was fierce, and the guy was thrown to the ground like a meteor. Lying on the ground and already spitting blood, Ring says he didn't think the second-level monster would be this energetic. The man gets up. The beast was already right in front of him. Given the situation, the guy decides to use his special attack. Ring gets ready and unleashes his attack on the monster. A huge wave of blue energy starts to course through the beast's body. The tiger falls to the ground, engulfed in blue flames. The man got full of himself, thinking it was all over. Meanwhile, the group fighting the bear was getting the worst of it. The guys were completely cornered and on the defensive. The archer shouts that the leader took down the tiger and they needed to fall back. Meanwhile, the other group also couldn't handle the two-headed dog. The woman was desperate. In my opinion, they're terrible hunters. Soon, Ning sees the two beasts chasing the group side by side. The distance was good. So, he decides to launch his attack. But at that moment, Ning feels an intense pressure and stops his attack. That feeling radiated certain death. The tiger from before hadn't been defeated. It was in the process of evolving and had now reached the 3rd level. Ning realizes he no longer had any choices. The boy needed to deal with the tiger beast as well. The protagonist gets ready and unleashes his sword storm attack against the huge monster. Ring senses the attack coming from behind and sees that massive energy hitting all the monsters on the battlefield. He is in disbelief. That attack power was insane. The strike not only hit the tiger, but also took out the two-headed dog and the bear in the process. Everyone looks around to find out who was responsible for the attack. The bald guy can only shout in frustration to the captain that someone stole his prey. Ring, who could barely stand, yells at the bald guy to shut up. He had eyes and saw everything for himself. Internally, the commander was feeling like trash. He watched his prey get stolen right before his eyes and couldn't do a thing about it. The guy was shaking, having witnessed that overwhelming power, and he was sure he couldn't go head-to-head with someone like that. Now, the man was planning to go to the Celestial Belly Command and demand an explanation for what had just happened. Meanwhile, Ning's system announces that he has defeated 3 monsters and obtained several items. The protagonist hides in one of the alleys and tells the system to show him the status of the blue-ranked item. The item was the resentful tiger gloves. The weapon had a special effect that increased attack power by 30%. Can you imagine the destruction that the combination of these gloves with the sword storm attack would cause? The equipment was also capable of dealing psychic damage, with a stunning effect on the target. There was a small chance of making the prey feel fear. The wearer of the resentful gloves could even withstand the terror of the mutant tiger. Ning thought it was an excellent blue-level piece of equipment. No wonder the level 3 commander wanted it so badly too. Soon, the boy equips the resentful gloves. After that, the story takes us somewhere else. Horn was feeling pretty sleepy. He was responsible for investigating the Corpse Academy and hadn't found anything. The guy had no leads on the mysterious level 3 awakened. He didn't even know if that person could be the same one from the previous incident. At that moment, a soldier announces another investigation. There were 2 level 3 psychic energy signals at the zoo. Huang quickly snaps awake and gets up in a hurry. It wasn't possible for so many level 3 awakened to show up at the same time. The commander orders the soldier to hurry and call everyone else. They were going to the location right now. If they didn't find anything when Commander Xiao returned, they'd be in serious trouble. Soon, the crazy guy arrives at the Celestial Wind headquarters, yelling like a madman for Commander Xiao. It was the guy from the zoo and his team. Huang shows up, saying that Commander Xiao is fighting on the front lines and asks why Ring is so worked up. Ring didn't know Huang and questioned why this brat dared to speak to him. Huang introduced himself as a qualified investigator of the Celestial Wind and a subordinate of Commander Xiao. Since Xiao wasn't there, he offered to listen to Ring and maybe solve his problem. Ring stormed up to the man furiously. He says that in the morning he went to the Paradise of the Dead to get blue-level equipment for his son, but the man claims he ended up being robbed by a level 3 awakened from that area. Huang found the whole thing pretty strange. It was exactly in that same place that the energy anomaly was detected. Ring points his finger in Huang's face and says that the people from that area have no manners. Smiling, Huang asks Ring to calm down. There was only 1 level 3 man in that area, and it was Commander Xiao. There was no way someone from his team could have robbed him. That doesn't calm Ring down. He knew what he had seen and already sensed that talking to the useless subordinate wouldn't get him anywhere. Ring decides to go to the front lines and ask Xiao for an explanation. Another man who witnessed the commotion thought it best to report this to the commander as soon as possible. In another city, a guy shouts in fear. He heard his subordinate's report and couldn't believe what he was hearing. It was unthinkable for a level 3 to show up in the city and still have the audacity to steal the awakened level 3 womb. The commander, whom the blonde guy called, thought someone might be hiding inside the Celestial Wind and told his subordinate to investigate, but to do so cautiously. Now, let's go to the education center for young recruits. Ning was eating something while staring at his status panel. The boy still had to complete 2 more missions in order to level up. Ning put more items up for sale. Even though they were low level, he hoped to find another buyer soon. At that moment, he received a new message from a seller, trying to sell Ning the Wind Eagle wings. Ning said he would offer 800 credits. The guy was shocked by the high price. 800 credits for the Wind Wing. That would be much more than someone at level 1, rank C, would earn in an entire year. Seeing that he could raise the price even more, the fat guy asks for 1,000 credits, saying that he worked hard to get the item. The fat guy even insults Ning, saying that since he was level 1, he should just close the deal already. Of course, this makes our boy kind of freak out. Bluntly, Ning says that the bastard isn't going to manipulate him. The price is what it is, and it's already above market value. And if the guy doesn't want it, he should just get lost and stop wasting his time, because he's really busy. This leaves the fat guy speechless. In the end, he asks if they can settle for the original price of 800 credits. Ning is satisfied, and so they close the deal. The protagonist also says that now he would only pay 400 credits. And if the guy didn't want to sell him the item, he would just find another seller who would sell it even cheaper. The chubby guy can't handle the pressure and, with no other choice, ends up agreeing to the boy's terms. Ning had already finished eating. So, he decides to enter the dungeon. He knew that this place was very different from other combat dungeons. No one had been able to achieve an SSS ranking in the missions. All because the test itself wasn't about combat, but rather a psychic challenge. Ning pushes past the boundaries and enters the Youth Education Center. A system message pops up and asks if the boy would like to enter the dungeon. Ning confirms, and he was going to take this opportunity to test how strong his psychic abilities had become. Soon, Ning is teleported inside the dungeon. The sky had changed color. Everything had a very reddish hue. Besides him, there were other people in that place. Many were on the ground, suffering from severe headaches. Liang, the only one who seemed to be okay, thought that the teleportation process from that portal was quite different. An old man with glasses namely introduces himself to everyone. He was at the peak of the first level. Everyone was there for a level advancement test. None of them had very strong combat abilities, but they did have a strong psychic essence, which was still considered useless in that world. Oldly notices that there are only young people there and explains that the dungeon would test everyone's willpower. That way, they had a better chance of completing the mission. The newbies get all excited about the old man, except for Ning, who just quietly watched the whole scene. The old man notices the protagonist keeping his distance and asks if the young man had a problem. Speaking in a friendly way, Ning simply says that he's in a hurry and asks them to move on already. The main mission was to find and seal a ghost that was hiding in the school. First, the group had to determine the ghost's location. They couldn't rely on lies. And finally, if the sealing talisman failed to reach the ghost, the mission would be considered a failure and would result in instant elimination. This leaves Liang and Feng terrified, but the old man says it's not that bad and tells the boys to stay calm. Liang explains that a ghost's call was nothing more than the willpower of an individual contaminated by psychic energy before their death. Even so, the ghosts were quite strong. With that, everyone started searching the school for clues. The young people from before blindly trusted the old man and began to follow him. They ended up splitting into 3 groups to explore more quickly. Ning was left alone and went to search the records room. He found something on the floor. It was a badly torn piece of newspaper. It said that Professor Tao was suspected of assaulting Wang Feng and, in the end, Wang took his own life. At that moment, a terrifying creature appeared above Ning. The ghost tried to attack the boy, but Ning remained still. He realized that the ghost was Wang Feng, and by using his psychic energy, all the contaminated energy started to be absorbed by Ning. The protagonist was having trouble absorbing it all. In the end, the ghost threw itself out a window and escaped. Ning thought that Wang Feng was just trying to gauge his psychic power. The smart ones exchanged messages with each other to report what they had discovered. Oldly and the girl Huang formed the other group. They discovered that the Huang family requested compensation from the teacher, but the girl's family lost. So, the vengeful ghost set fire to the school seeking revenge. Some priests went to the school and sealed the girl, but apparently the talisman fell off, which is why there's a mission now. They were supposed to find this ghost and seal her again. The third group was made up of Liang and Feng. Both of them were terrified. Suddenly, Feng sees a shadowy figure. The 2 boys start searching the area with their flashlights. They were both scared out of their minds and wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. Liang tells the other boy to run. He was sure it was the ghost. Both of them start running, calling for the old man. At that moment, the ghost chases after them. Since Ning had already searched the records room, he found the old man and the girl. The other part of the mission was to find the talisman. Since the door leading to the next room was locked, Ning broke it down with a single light kick. This startled the girl and the old man, but soon Huang spotted the talisman on the floor, and another part of the mission was completed. Meanwhile, Ning analyzes the facts. The trace of humanoid energy, the fallen talisman, and also the professor's dormitory. Ning asks the girl if, based on the clues they found, they discovered whether the professor was burned in the room. Huang says no and asks why he brought that up. At that moment, the 2 escapees show up, desperate, with the ghost right behind them. Feng asks the old man for help, but in the very next second, he ends up being possessed. The boy loses control and his face transforms into a hideous creature. Liang asks if his friend is okay. By doing so, he draws the ghost's attention. And Feng, who was possessed, jumps on the boy and bites his neck. The old man calls out to Ning and Huang. They need to start the sealing ritual to help the boys. The old man says he will restrain the possessed boy and asks the girl to seal the ghost. However, Ning thinks quickly and snatches the talisman from the girl's hands, announcing that he will take on the sealing duty. Ning follows the old man, waiting for him to restrain the possessed youth. Oldly uses his psychic energy to create countless red chains. Ning was in the background with the talisman, which was radiating an intense golden light, ready to go. The old man finally manages to restrain the boy's body and shouts for Ning to hurry up. He wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. Ning, aware of this, moves forward, saying that it would all be over very soon. But then he places the talisman on Old Li's back, saying it's done, and calls him Professor Tao. Old Li, in disbelief, looks back and calls Ning a fool. He says Ning put the talisman on the wrong person and mentions that everyone there would be wiped out because of him. Ning just points at the possessed boy in front of them and asks if the old man still wants to keep pretending, since as soon as he put the talisman on him, the evil spirit left Fang's body. The girl, still a bit scared, already understands everything. Old Li was the evil spirit. Ning calls Li Professor Tao and asks how much longer he plans to keep pretending. The protagonist says that the old man used his energy to turn himself into a ghost, in order to test the team's power and mess with everyone. He mentions that Tao tried to attack him first, but Ning proved to be a tough target. So, he went after Fang, whose willpower was weaker than his. After that, the old man pretended to fight the ghost, trying to take advantage of everyone's desperation to use the scroll on Fang. That way, everyone would fail the mission and the system would wipe them all out. The girl was already on the ground, completely shaken. If she had used the talisman on Fang, they would all be doomed by now. Now that the old man's power was sealed, Ning wasn't so worried anymore. Using his energy, the protagonist gets ready to reveal Li's true form. Ning unleashed his energy at the old man, hitting him squarely and causing him to writhe on the ground. As a dark energy left his body, the skin on his face began to melt, and soon a bald, completely deformed creature showed itself. He was furious. Tao says he disguised himself so well. He wanted to know how the bastard figured out his disguise. The boy wasn't really in the mood to reveal that. After all, sealing him would complete the mission. He didn't want to waste any more time. With a sinister smile, the apparition reveals a hidden mission. If he didn't complete this mission, he wouldn't get the SSS rank for the dungeon. That, of course, caught the protagonist's attention, realizing he managed to make Ning curious. Tao mentions that's why no one had ever received an SSS rank for that dungeon. Guys, just a side note. There have already been several comments asking about the level system in this story, which is totally different from what we're used to. There are only 5 levels, from level 0 up to the highest, which is level 4. It's not enough to just defeat strong monsters to level up, that only increases your skill and strength. Along with that, you need to complete level missions like the one Ning is doing now. I hope you all can understand this clearly. If he failed, his body would be penalized and he would never be a warrior again. But if he succeeds, then he gets countless benefits depending on his final ranking. Continuing, the old man wasn't about delivering how to get this hidden quest handed to you on a silver platter. If Ning revealed how he discovered his identity, he would be willing to talk about this hidden quest. The protagonist starts thinking. In his previous life, he had never heard that there was a hidden quest in that place. And since Ning's powers were discovered very late, he didn't even get to properly explore those dungeons. In the end, Ning decides to tell the old man everything, but first he needed to find out why the ghost wanted to know what he had revealed. The monster reveals that the beings there had developed intelligence. Even if the dungeon was reset, their memories could be preserved. He didn't mind losing now, as long as he could improve his entire strategy and mess with the other hunters. This scared the girl. How could the monsters accumulate intelligence? If that were true, that dungeon wasn't a C-level one, it would be B-level or even higher. The old man says that everyone was right. Now, he just wanted to know how Ning figured out his disguise. The boy reveals that it was actually pretty simple. In the mission description, it was mentioned that everyone shouldn't believe in lies. Since the female ghost never said anything, she couldn't have been lying. And secondly, Old Li never used the system chat. Pretty suspicious, right? There were also clues about the girl having taken her own life. If everything was correct, The talisman should have been in her grave, not in the teacher's dormitory. It was just a matter of connecting the dots. Ning knew that everything had been tampered with by the teacher, and since the girl was labeled as crazy and committed to a psychiatric hospital, she was never able to prove anything. So she ended her own life, and seeking revenge, her family set the school on fire. Before being eliminated, the teacher's willpower was tainted. That's how he became a ghost. Ning thought it was important to point out that the haunting incidents only started after the fire. The ghost could only be the teacher, and that's why he needed to be sealed. The girl in the group thought everything made perfect sense now. Old Lee just tried to cover everything up and make them follow him blindly. She thought Ning's willpower was amazing and couldn't believe he was only level 1. Don't forget that he's already completed some level missions. The old man says that Ning was partially right. The ghost woman couldn't speak until she was sealed. He didn't send any messages because maybe he was looking for clues. That's why he asked Huangxia for help. And as for the talisman, which was in her dorm room, it only meant that her energy got trapped there after everything she went through. Ning says that the old man did try, but none of that was enough to convince him. The boy says that, of course, he didn't believe in lies, but if he really wanted to know the truth, all it would take was for the ghost to disappear, and he would speak just seconds before leaving, which completely exposed his disguise. That statement made the ghost furious. Even so, he was willing to do as Ning asked. The creature's body starts to fall apart. Ning raises his finger and says that the most important thing of all was, the ghost was already desperate and told the boy to just say it. Now all that was left of him was his head. With an evil grin, Ning reveals that he just guessed. And the ghost disappears, cursing even the boy's ancestors as he goes. Huang couldn't believe that Ning had simply guessed that the old man was the real ghost. Ning tells the girl to hurry up and leave that dungeon, but she insisted on knowing the truth. And here I am wanting to know about the secret mission. Where is it? Could it be that the old man lied? Well, I wouldn't doubt it. At this point, Ning reveals that it wasn't just a wild guess. He remembers the old man mentioning the location of the talisman. There was no way he could have known that. In a way, he ended up giving himself away. Huang starts to tremble, thinking Ming is scarier than the ghost. I think in the end, the hidden mission was to make the ghost disappear, since Ning managed to get an SSS dungeon completion rating. This time, Ning obtained a necklace that increased his psychic recovery by 20%. As well as boosting his psychic attacks by another 20%. The boy thought that was good. Maybe that equipment would save his life one day. Later that night, Ning goes to the center to report the completion of his missions. The receptionist didn't believe the boy had completed 2 missions in just one day. But Ning corrected her. He had already completed all 4. The woman started typing frantically on the computer. As a result, the boy's strength, psychic energy, willpower, and agility increased. And 7,300 credits were also added to the protagonist's account. The boy leaves, leaving the receptionist in shock behind him. In less than a week, he had reached the 2nd level. Ning realized that this sword god system wasn't bad at all. Since the receptionist found the whole thing pretty suspicious, she decided to report it to her superiors. As he walked through the city, Ning thought that his current equipment wasn't too bad for level 2. Even so, if he wanted to practice the level B sword skill he had obtained, he still needed 23 points. A psychic fruit could increase 1 point if he was lucky. After doing some calculations, he realized he would need 35 of these fruits, and to get them, he would have to spend 21,000 credits. So Ning grabs his little scooter and rides toward the dungeon where he knew there was a nice piece of blue level equipment. That way, he could easily trade it for the credits he needed. Soon the boy comes across a zombie wave portal. In his previous life, this outbreak only happened a year in the future. The celestial zone suffered a lot from this wave, which resulted in many casualties. Looking at the rift, Ning estimated that it would happen next week. So the boy turns back on his motorcycle. Ning decided to notify Commander Xiao so he could take the necessary precautions ahead of time. While he was on his ship, Xiao receives a message from the boy Ning. Commander Xiao, in 1 week, the Celestial Wind District will be hit by a zombie wave. Please redeploy your men as quickly as possible to ensure everyone's safety. Of course, this left the man quite surprised. The commander started to wonder what the boy's real intentions were. Xiao thought maybe Ming just wanted attention, since he hadn't received the proper treatment for an SS level. Xiao thought that didn't seem right. He had already analyzed that portal prototype, and the energy fluctuations were still very low. The last war between humans and zombies was 40 years ago, and since then the world had been quite peaceful. Besides that, given the location, the zombies were in an area that had been abandoned until now. He didn't think it was right to reallocate such valuable resources based on the suggestion of a boy who, at the moment, wasn't all that talented. In the conference room of the Tianfeng district, several commanders gathered. Well, actually only 3. The men were discussing the clues collected about that mysterious, still unidentified, level 3 hidden warrior. In the end, the guy reports that the most suspicious person so far was Yining, our boy. Of course, the boss didn't want to believe these assumptions. Everything is pointing to the protagonist, but these guys are blind. The man in charge even mentions that he also found it unbelievable. However, after several investigations, he found some materials sold by the boy. Specifically, the beast from the 3rd level that had been eliminated. Not to mention, he bought a pretty luxurious house some time ago, something ordinary people couldn't even dream of getting their hands on. Looking at the tablet, the boss wonders if the mysterious level 3 warrior was really that boy. The representative of the military commission, Liang Xiao, who will now be referred to as Tian, says that it's only been a week since this boy awakened. He mentions that even SS-level talents couldn't grow that fast. He also says that Zhang Lai, the son of General Zhang, who was also an SS-level awakened, received countless resources and had just reached the 1st level. Tian slammed the table in anger. He speculated that there was no way it could be the boy, and that there must be a level 3 awakened secretly supporting the protagonist behind the scenes. Not even when the truth is shoved in these useless people's faces do they believe in the protagonist. The other men even thought that this theory made a lot of sense. Although the military wasn't so optimistic about Yining, other third-order people might not see it that way. And once again, they choose the wrong path. These guys are totally blind. Seth level was really very rare. It wasn't impossible to secretly train someone like that. The men even thought that if that were the case, there was no reason for them to worry too much about it. If Ning suddenly became a 3rd-level hunter, they might consider using the boy. Soon they received news from the advancement center. The attendant had just reported that our crazy protagonist had just completed 4 promotion tasks and was currently at the 2nd level. Shock filled everyone's faces in the room. That's it, Tian. I want to see you take back everything you just said. Contrary to what I thought, with this revelation that Yining had just advanced to the 2nd level, the men completely ruled the boy out as a suspect. There was no way he could be the mysterious 3rd-level warrior who was being detected on the radars. Even so, they decided to investigate whether there was someone behind the boy's actions. Xiao even thought that if there really was a level 3 behind Yining's actions, it was that person who made the boy warn them about the approaching zombie wave. And so, the meeting was brought to an end. Before leaving, Sean tells the guy in the cap to give a blue-level piece of equipment to Zhang, the crybaby general, so he would stop bothering him. It was already quite dark, and so we head to a district outside the Tianfeng safe zone. No one checks their panel. The cooldown time for the Sword Storm ability had already ended. Now he was ready to enter a new dungeon. No one enters a dungeon that was inside an abandoned factory. The boy gets a warning that there were already 15 people in the area. Though no one went into the factory, the boy ran into a huge group. This time, the people he would have to deal with didn't seem so simple. Not only were there some teams that seemed pretty skilled, but there was also a girl named Nang, apparently already at the 3rd level. And let me tell you, she's got style. No one says that people who were on the 3rd level felt uncomfortable and also felt a threatening pressure. A really friendly guy named Bei gathers everyone together. He introduces himself as a second-order veteran. He points out that, as everyone already knew, these war-type dungeons had several rounds and that teamwork was essential. Bei points to Nong and says that at first he expected to guide everyone, but there was someone among them who was much stronger. The girl didn't even let the side character finish talking and slammed the guy into the ground with a single attack. The guy was left stunned on the ground, spitting out red saliva. But Nong wasn't satisfied. She came at him like a wild beast. Anyone who wasn't clueless just watched the woman, thinking she was really fast. The beauty stomped on the unsuspecting side character's head. Then she warned him. If he so much as moved a finger, his life would end right there. The rest of the hunters thought that woman was a maniac, because why would a third-level hunter treat one of her teammates so harshly? The hooded team approaches Nong, asking the others to stay calm. From what I could tell, they're on the same side. At that, the woman warns everyone that if anyone moves, she'll take their life. Everyone stood still next to the girl. Meanwhile, Ning was in the middle of the crowd, also frozen. A warrior named Dan and another named Tico exchanged glances. Both were afraid because they had run into the legendary team of creators. Legend said that this team specialized in capturing awakened. The two, who were smarter than the others, knew they wouldn't stand a chance against the third-level awakened. No one thinks that regular hunters advance by defeating monsters. But these creators advance by hunting humans. One guy steps forward. He mentions that they outnumbered them and could get out of there. As for Bei, there was no saving him anymore. Seconds later, the woman presses her foot against the ground and crushes Bei's head. Unbothered by what just happened, she says she's the captain of the Blood Wolves and loudly declares that she will be leading this operation. She also points out that everyone's lives there are in her beautiful hands. She assured the men that whoever survived until the 6th round and gave her all the rewards and credits would be allowed to live. Of course, Ning didn't believe this woman. It was pretty suspicious that there would be a way to get out alive after what she had just done. He thought it was a shame that his other attack still wasn't available. He could have combined it with the Sword Storm attack and finished off that damn woman in seconds. Ning wasn't sure if he could handle that woman with just the Sword Storm. If he couldn't finish her off in a single blow, it would be game over. So he decided to take it one step at a time. The first round was about to begin. Then she told everyone to reveal their abilities. She was going to split the group into 2 strategic teams. Dan revealed that he was a physical type, specializing in close combat. Tico said he used long-range attacks and was at the peak of the 2nd level, in addition to having great agility. So the others continued with their introductions until it was the protagonist's turn. The boy mentioned that he was at the 2nd level and was good at long-range attacks. His attribute was psychic type. The maniac approached the protagonist, making him nervous. She said it was very rare to find handsome warriors like him, and thought it was a shame to have met him this way. Nag turned around and said that he would be eliminated in the very first round. It was a waste. With a serious expression, our boy reveals that soon she would swallow those words. A few minutes later, the first round of monsters begins. The group was split into 2 teams, and our protagonist went to the front line alongside Dan and Tico. Dan was furious. That damn girl's team wouldn't even participate in the first round. Her plan was to tire everyone out and then take all the rewards for clearing the dungeon. The group found themselves surrounded, with zombies in front of them and the creator's team behind. Dan didn't think they had any chance of survival given the desperate situation they were in. All the warriors immediately took up their fighting stances. Meanwhile, the tongue monsters charged in with everything they had. The archer stepped back and began channeling energy into the tip of his arrow. He also called out to Ning, asking the boy to stay by his side. Both of them would provide support while the rest fought on the front lines. Dan leapt at one of the monsters with his hammer. Meanwhile, Ning and the archer were attacking the monsters further in the back. One of the warriors channeled his energy and then released it, piercing through the bodies of countless creatures at once. Dan was in the middle of the chaos, smashing everything he could reach with his hammer. Ning also jumped into action, but unlike the others, he still hadn't shown what he was truly capable of. Using his energy, he simply blew up the head of a straggling zombie monster that was at the end of the attack wave. Sheldon didn't like that very much, not at all. He thought the protagonist was useless, only managing to take out a mere zombie with one of his attacks. Ning was still standing on a platform watching the fight. She thought Ning's attacks were cute. She noticed that this group of Awaken was somewhat skilled. They even carried the boy. But the woman was eager to see how everyone would do in the next round. So the first wave was contained and the Linguinhas were all lying on the ground, their heads pierced by arrows. Half an hour later, the third round begins. Dan gets nervous. The difficulty level was increasing. In this round, there would be a level 2 mutant. Tico was also worried. Besides dealing with the monsters, they needed to find a way to take down that damn woman who put them in this situation. The good thing was that this was the third round, so it couldn't be that hard. It was Ning who said that. She questions whether the men were scared even after reaching the second level, or if everyone there was just a bunch of crybabies. The woman also mentions that her group would only start fighting in the 6th round, and if everyone wanted to stay alive, none of them should hide their abilities. She's just waiting and analyzing everyone to strike at the right moment. Truly a snake. Seconds later, she turns to Ning. He didn't die after all. However, the boy seemed to have several injuries. Ning pretended to be nervous and announced that he fought bravely. Sheldon is already pissed at the boy, since he didn't do anything and was just carried along. Watching the argument, Ning thinks that Ning must have a big trump card. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made it to the 2nd level. She assumes that his strongest moves could only be used once or at most twice. I'll just say she really knows how to read the battlefield. No wonder she's the leader. The woman figures the tide of the game could turn at any moment. With that, the next wave of monsters begins. A giant creature, resembling an octopus with teeth, charges forward alongside countless zombies that also had teeth in the middle of their chests. Sheldon tells the protagonist to focus his attacks on the level 2 zombie octopus. Dan and Tico also moved up to fight on the front lines against the level 2 beast. The rest of the team would handle the other monsters. Dan charges forward with his hammer. However, the zombie octopus was extremely powerful and threw him back before he could even land his first attack. Tico tries to support his brother by shooting some energy arrows at the monster. But in the background, a careless hunter-archer ends up becoming prey to one of the beasts. Moments later, part of his head is eaten. Meanwhile, a spearman gets ready and moments later, he drives his weapon into the body of one of the zombie monsters. A strange energy began to flow from the monster's body and fell upon the warrior. The spearman collapsed to the ground on his knees as that dense blue energy corroded his entire being. Sheldon gets worried and shouts, calling for his friend. But it was already too late. The guy turned into a monster, or rather, a zombie. Sheldon's shouting ended up attracting the attention of his friend, now transformed. The monster was so fast that the man thought he wouldn't have time to react. The protagonist starts to assess the situation of his allies. Many had been taken out and everyone was injured. If the casualties kept up like this, Ning feared the group would be wiped out before the 6th round. If that happened, he wouldn't meet the necessary conditions for the 7th round to begin. At that moment, Sheldon launched an attack against his transformed friend. And just like before, that mysterious energy started to flow from his body. The next instant, a huge meteor of energy hits a zombie, and Ning also jumped in to get Sheldon out of danger, dragging him by the collar of his jacket. The boy was as fast as lightning. With a smile, Ning thinks that it's time for him to start having some fun. Using his energy like a whip, he strikes one of the zombies and then immediately shoots his energy at another. Ning's energy surrounded the battlefield, blowing up the monsters with incredible skill. Sheldon was stunned. He couldn't believe his eyes. The last monster Ning took down was the 2nd-order beast. At that moment, the guy wondered if Ning was really the same useless boy from before. The scene cuts to the level 2 zombie beast, already lying on the ground, with energy shaped like a sword piercing through its head. And not only that, Ning's energy was coursing throughout the entire battlefield. The boy tells the other hunters not to get distracted. Most of the monsters were still standing. Ning even blushed a little seeing such skill. In the end, Ning really did have a trick up his sleeve. She also noticed that the boy had moved really fast just now. That was thanks to his boots. The boy probably had blue-level equipment. The maniac's disciple asks if she wanted to take the boy's life right at that moment. All excited watching the fight, the woman says not now. There were very few warriors left on the battlefield. She would get that equipment in the next wave. She wanted everyone to exhaust their reserves of mental energy, so she could manipulate them easily. The woman realizes that Ning was hiding her ability, and there was also another warrior who was doing the same, and she tells her lackey to keep an eye on them. Half an hour later, a huge creature was lying on the ground. There were 2 warriors on top of it. It was Dan and Tico. Dan was worried. Many men had already been eliminated. He barely knew if he could make it to the 6th round. Tico tells Dan to stay calm. Soon Ning would join the fight, and when that happened, both of them should try to corner her and then attack. Lon looked at Ning and asked if Tico had noticed the difference in the boy's fighting style. He didn't seem the least bit tired, not even after using the same attack over and over again. Tico noticed that too, and just like Ning, he thought Broda had an ace up his sleeve. Both of them decided to keep an eye on the boy so he would stay alive until the 6th wave. And here comes another round of monsters, this time with bloodthirsty bats and giant spiders. And let's not forget about a weird worm whose name I have no idea about. One of the spiders jumps and starts swallowing a warrior's body while he's still alive. Behind Ning, another guy was captured by that worm from before. While the guy was screaming for help, Ning used his energy and started stabbing the monster all over its body. However, his blows weren't enough. All of his attacks bounced off. Ning realizes that it would be hard to deal with an advanced-level beast without using powerful attacks. Dan and Tico weren't in a better situation either, a situation much better than Ning's. Both of them were surrounded by a giant 2-headed ogre and a bloodthirsty little vampire. Dan thinks that Ning should use his trump card right now. If he wanted to stay alive until the next round, they wouldn't be able to help him. Chico fires a freezing arrow at the giant bat, or vampire, I'm not even sure anymore. Meanwhile, Dan leaps at the 2-headed ogre and smashes one of its heads with his hammer. Nong was watching everyone with her hungry eyes. Something had her thoroughly entertained. The maniac was in ecstasy. On the battlefield, Ning was surrounded. There was a huge spider on his back. On top of that, a vermic was speeding toward him. The 2 monsters attacked Ning at the same time, and the entire ground beneath them was completely destroyed. Dan and Chico shouted in astonishment. In the end, the boy was done for. But then a massive explosion occurs. Ning leaps out through what's left of the carcasses and remains of the monsters' bodies. Seeing the boy alive shocked Dan and Chico. Well, actually, it wasn't just them. Nong confirmed that the kid really did have a trump card. Right after that, Ning fires countless energy arrows at the corpse spider. Dan and Chico are already moving in together to support the boy. Using his abilities even more intensely, Ning charges forward on top of a worm-type monster, wielding an energy sword in his hands. When he reached the monster's head, Ning unleashed his attack with full force and finally managed to pierce the insect's thick hide. In an instant, a massive whirlwind of energy completely wiped the creature from existence. In the next scene, Ning strengthened his fist with an intense golden energy. With incredible speed and power, he leapt into the whirlwind of energy he had created. And just like that, he annihilates the enormous monster. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a centipede. Chico was stunned. How did that kid manage to take down that monster? How did he do all of that by himself? Dan simply didn't say a word. He just stared at everything, also shocked and speechless. Nung was truly excited. The boy not only had blue-ranked boots, but also gloves. She saw Ning as a plump, fluffy little lamb, ready for the slaughter. Next, the woman stared at the group of hooded figures and ordered everyone to join the next round and also to start the harvest. She also warned everyone not to get close to Ning. The boy was hers. Dan and Chico were already on high alert. Only they and Ning would survive this next round. They were going to try to attack Nong when they got the chance. If they couldn't, they were supposed to weaken her and let the boy finish the job. The next wave of monsters was insane. There were 3 giants, a huge boar, a creepy bald guy, and the biggest of them all, a giant wielding an enormous sword. And to round out the group, there were several smaller zombies, all deformed. There was a chubby zombie, a bald one, an insect zombie, and even Aladdin who turned into a zombie. Just look at this little blue round guy. This group was left to Nagi. Since it was the last round, she told everyone to give it their all. She kept on slaughtering the monsters, as if she was already eager to get her hands dirty. The maniac promised to let anyone who survived this round live. She was just going to rob them. But we already know that's a huge lie. Right after that, she went after the first epileptic corpse on the 2nd level. And she told the rest of the hunters to focus their firepower on fighting the other monsters. The big guy already draws his sword from its sheath to finish off the damn thing. He delivers a heavy slash, destroying the entire floor, but unfortunately, the woman managed to dodge it. In fact, that just made her even more excited. Soon after, Nagi lifts her leg and lands a powerful kick on the zombie beast swordsman. With that, she breaks the beast's sword in half. The big zombie wasn't too happy about losing his weapon, and fueled purely by rage, he tried to bite Nagi. But the woman had some tricks up her sleeve too. She created a red shield called the blood shield. So the zombie's teeth crashed into the shield, leaving the woman unharmed. The scene shifts to Ning, who was fighting against a giant scorpion. But he was also taking the opportunity to observe and analyze the way Ning fought. He realized it would be pretty tough to take her down. Plus, Ning also knew she probably had a trump card attack just like he did. Meanwhile, as always, Dan and Tycho were fighting side by side. They planned to take out the monsters and earn the kill rewards, hoping that would give them more strength to face Nong. And speaking of the devil, in the meantime, the woman managed to rip off the head of the swordsman zombie. Eager to land all the fatal blows on the monsters, Nong approaches Dan and Tycho. At that moment, Dan realizes they need to get ready to act. Without caring about the hunters, Nong leaps toward the red boar's head, delivering a powerful kick. At that moment, she stared at Dan, mocking how weak he was. Sheldon glared at the damn woman, and right then, Tycho fired hundreds of energy arrows at Nong. Dan takes a defensive stance and activates his shield suit ability. The energy arrow was just inches from Nong's back. The protagonist faces the pair. They started their attacks against Nong, but the boy thought the group acted too soon. A huge explosion happened when the energy arrow hit. Ning raised his arms to shield his eyes. For a moment, Tycho thought his attack had worked, but soon he started to worry about Dan. Nong was completely unharmed, and the boar stood motionless behind her. The woman asked Tycho if he thought she was stupid and defenseless. Dan was buried against a wall. Nong used him as a shield. In fact, she switched places with him. Ning watched everything closely and noticed this last move. Angry, she started beating the body of the fallen zombie boar. But soon she turned her fury on Tycho, the source of all her problems. She punched the man in the stomach with all her strength. His ribs were completely crushed. Nong knew that Tycho was an archer and decided to destroy his hand, so she could have fun with him without Tycho being able to defend himself. She started crushing the young man's arm with her foot. In the meantime, she turned to one of her hooded subordinates and told him to finish it quickly and start the harvest. One of the men brought a needle close to Tycho's eyes and told him to hand over all his equipment and all his credits. Otherwise, he would experience one of the most painful ways to leave that world. Dan was also getting the same treatment from one of the hooded figures. He swore he wouldn't give up anything, and if he got eliminated, he would haunt them all for the rest of their existence. Out of nowhere, Ning started acting like a scared kid. He raised his hands and started yelling for them not to torture or hurt him. He would give up everything. A hooded figure approached Ning and said it was a shame, but their boss had ordered them to break his hands and feet. Ning asked the hooded figure to wait. He needed his fingers to transfer his credits. Internally, Ning thought that his chance to fight back would come on the 7th wave. Until then, he needed to buy himself a little more time. Out of nowhere, something wiped the hooded figure from existence. Ning gave a slight smile. He realized that the moment had finally arrived. It was hard to unlock this last round, but as expected, it finally came. To unlock this round, all you had to do was keep moving forward without choosing difficulty levels. A certain number of votes was also required, but all of that had just been met. The hooded figure started to panic. What do you mean another round has started? They wondered how this stage began if they hadn't agreed to start it. Actually, 70% of the hunters had to agree to move forward, and in this case they thought that hadn't happened. But I suspect Ning knew another way to start this stage. Dan, who was barely hanging on, scared the hell out of those bastards. He'd heard rumors that third-level monsters were part of this wave and wished those scoundrels good luck. Ning starts to panic. This wasn't part of the plan. She tries to get closer to Dan for answers, but she was already out of time. The Monster King had just shown up. A worm with teeth over 50 meters tall. I have no idea if that's really a worm, but now it is. Suddenly, a purple beam of energy shot through the dungeon, ripping off all the hooded figures' heads. Ning asks if Dan and Taiko can still move. Both of them should hide as far away from that area as possible. Did he recharge his other ability? If so, it's going to be a complete massacre. The monster from before starts to lift its body and roar. Meanwhile, Chico was carrying Dan, trying to get out of that area as quickly as possible. Ning starts to materialize a sword in her hand, and also tells Nong that there was something very special about that third-level beast. Third-level mutants had intelligence, and that's why they prioritized hunting the highest-level awakened, which at the moment was her. So now it looks like it's going to be 2 against 1. She's going to have to face Ning and the monster at the same time. The enormous monster roars. Nong looked tiny compared to the huge creature. When she was about to be attacked, the damn woman switched places with one of her subordinates, leaving him as food for the monster. Worried, she stared at the beast. When she saw the huge monster go after her former companion, Nong took the chance to try to escape. Ning was watching everything from a distance. He knew that the woman's ability had a limit. Nong couldn't use her ability to switch places with him, nor with Dan or Chico, who were also next to Ning, exhausted. After devouring one of the hooded figures, the beast quickly turned its attention to Nong. The creature charged at the woman, and although she managed to jump away just in time and dodge the monster's attack, she was soon hit squarely by the beast's counterattack and thrown far away. Nong felt her body being crushed and coughed up a lot of blood. Taking advantage of the opening, Ning got ready to spring into action. He unleashed his attack Sword Storm against the giant body of the toothy worm, slicing everything with precision down to the millimeter. Nong, who was lying on the ground, watched the scene in shock. Ning's level was identical to that of a third-order mutant. The woman hadn't thought there was another awakened person of that level in this dungeon besides herself. Meanwhile, our boy's attack was finishing off the monster, slicing it up. Nong witnessed the attack power firsthand. That power was insane. With the monster defeated, the system alerted them that the dungeon had been cleared and would disappear in 5 minutes. Ning stood at a distance, watching the destruction caused by the astonishing power of the Sword Storm skill. Dan and Chico were ecstatic. Ning defeated a third-order mutant with just 1 attack. They replayed that moment in a trance over and over again. Ning sensed that someone was still alive amidst all that chaos. Chico couldn't believe Nong could still be alive after such a complete massacre. But as we know, a bad penny always turns up. Ning activated psychic detection and levitated his knife using telekinesis. The scene cuts to Nong lying on the ground. The situation was far from ideal. She used her blood shield over her entire body to withstand the protagonist's attack. In the distance, she sees a dagger speeding toward her, heading straight in her direction. A look of shock mixed with worry filled the young woman's eyes. How could Ning still have energy after that massive attack? Our boy finds the damned one. His eyes were thirsty for blood, so she decides to finish the job. The dagger lunged toward Nong's forehead, but her shield didn't allow Ning to land his final blow. Realizing the girl's stubbornness to stay alive, Ning starts twisting his dagger to break the shield by brute force. Even so, Nong's shield was very tough. She started to smile at the boy's persistence. She thanked the heavens for equipping an A-rank defensive item, otherwise she wouldn't still be alive right now. Since Ning couldn't finish the job with telekinesis, the boy jumps off the platform wielding a sword and decides to take that woman's life himself, since she was on her last legs. She probably wouldn't be able to fight back. As Prota got closer to Nong, he saw that she was trying to get up. The woman was shocked to see the boy approaching her. Out of patience, Ning tried to cut off the young woman's head. However, her shield activated and Nong came out unscathed. The woman found the situation really humiliating and asked why the boy was doing all of this. Suddenly, Ning stopped attacking the girl. He was just trying to eliminate her. But she thought he was trying to humiliate her, which actually wasn't a bad idea since he couldn't do anything because of the shield. Ning started to laugh wickedly. Nong thought that dying was something honorable, very different from the humiliation of being bested by a brat. So Ning decided to change his plans. The boy crouched down and grabbed the girl's chin, asking if she wanted to get out of that life the easy way, even after eliminating all the other hunters so cruelly. She screamed, cursing Ming and calling him a bastard, demanding to know what he was going to do. With a sadistic smile, Ning asked if Nong was ready for her humiliation. The woman starts to beg, asking what she should do for him to spare her. Ning says it was pretty simple. All she had to do was what she claimed before. Give him all her equipment and transfer all her credits to him. That way, he would show mercy and end her life quickly. Nong says she doesn't know if she can trust the boy, but Ning just throws her to the ground, threatening her, saying that Nong had no choice. Frightened, the woman decides to do as the boy suggested and asks him to keep his word. So Nong sends some blue-level equipment to Ning, one called Blood Flower. The other was the Ice Flame Gauntlets and also the Paralyzing Flower. And to top it off, 13,000 credits. As he looked over his loot, Ning thought that robbing people was really the fastest way to get ahead. At that moment, the wretch closes her eyes and tells Ning to finish her off quickly, as promised. With a mocking smile at the girl's suffering, the protagonist says he doesn't believe that's all the woman had and accuses her of lying to him. The boy grabbed Nong's arm and pushed her to the ground, ending up in a rather suggestive position. Ning shouts at Nong not to blame him for what he's about to do next. Nong also yells that Feng is a wild animal, but Ning wasn't planning to do anything and just walked away, scratching the back of his neck. Nong quickly gets up, shouting at Ning, asking why he stopped and if he was scared. But then she realizes that the boy didn't end her life, nor did he touch her because he couldn't. The woman shouted that this wouldn't happen again. She called him a second-rate worm, a useless mentalist. Then a 10-second countdown begins. Everyone would be removed from the dungeon. Being the maniac she was, Nong starts laughing. She called herself an idiot for thinking Ning was at the 3rd rank. The protagonist just walked away, listening to what she had to say. Because of that shield, he couldn't finish her off. He still wasn't strong enough. With a murderous look, Nong reveals that no matter where Ning hides, she will find him and cut him into 1,000 pieces, until he begs for it to end. And so the dungeon ends and Ning returns to the entry point, with countless system windows popping up. Ning receives several white-level pieces of equipment, as well as some blue-level ones. Ning was satisfied. If he sold all those items, plus what he looted from Nong, he could buy several psychic fruits and raise all his attributes to 25 points. After that, Ning started riding his motorcycle. His plan was to reach Zhenjian's Inn before nightfall. It was already time for him to practice the rank B Shadow Blade skill. After that, he planned to get some equipment and adapt himself to the battlefield, since hordes of zombies would soon attack the city. As he made his way through the suburbs, an old man shouted for Ning to help him. Stepping into the boy's path, Ning slammed on the brakes to avoid running the man over. The old man claimed that his car had flipped over and asked the young man for help while pointing in a certain direction. Ning decided to help, but when he assessed the scene, it didn't look like that vehicle had flipped over recently. At that moment, several armed men approached the boy. It was a trap. Ning stared down the men. A highway robbery. That was pretty outdated. One guy, holding a crowbar, ordered Ning to put his hands up, shut up, and hand over all his credits. That way no one would get hurt. The protagonist just took out everyone with his machete. He really didn't want to talk or waste any more time there. With his bloodthirsty eyes, Ning stared at the bastard who had put him in this situation. The buck-toothed man was running for his life, desperate, screaming for help. Ning threw his dagger right at the man's legs, making him lose his balance and fall face-first to the ground. The man's calf was completely cut open. However, something was very strange and caught Ning's attention. The scoundrel wasn't bleeding. That meant the man wasn't human. He could be a zombie or a mutant. The buck-toothed man looked at the protagonist, terrified and in tears. He begged Ning not to finish him off. He said he knew where there were good items and the boy could take everything. Ignoring the bastard, Ning grabbed the buck-toothed man's collar, but the guy kept begging for his life, saying he was forced to do everything. But before he could go on, with a serious expression, Ning asked what the hell that man was. In his desperation, the buck-toothed man opened his status panel for Ning. The boy stared at it. Everything was quite curious. The buck-toothed man's name was Walu, and it said there that he was an NPC. He had the ability to visually detect market packages and also a skill that automatically increased the selling price by 10%, and the status panel also said that during a transaction, 5% of the quota was automatically added to his account. The protagonist looks at Walu, questioning whether he really was an NPC, and how he managed to escape from the dungeon. Lying on the ground, Walu admits that he wasn't sure. He had been wandering around outside ever since he became aware of his actions. After that, the buck-toothed man asks Ning to let him go. Ning becomes thoughtful. All three of the NPC's abilities were created by system bugs, skills that could never be mastered by an awakened person. That would be a huge help. Having that NPC would be like cheating the system. It would be like getting rich and acquiring tons of items. Quickly, Ning grabs a scroll and brings it close to Walu. It was a contract. The protagonist reveals that if the NPC signs the contract, he'll let him live. The buck-toothed guy starts sweating nervously. It was the contract of servitude. If Walu dared to betray Ning, he would be instantly deleted. Ning shoves the contract in the NPC's face, saying the terms were pretty simple. If Walu didn't sign, his life would be taken even faster. Desperate at the boy's cold words, the buck-toothed guy quickly signed the contract. Ning stands up, smiling and satisfied. From now on, the two could be considered teammates. Meanwhile, the buck-toothed guy was in tears. He didn't see himself as a teammate. He was forced to sign a contract by a bloodthirsty bully. Laughing at the NPC's misery, Ning tells the buck-toothed guy to grab the thieves' goods and keep them with him. Out of nowhere, Walu did a complete 180. He grabbed onto one of Ning's legs, thanking him for his kindness. Ning thought it was pretty easy to earn that NPC's loyalty. After that, Ning told the buck-toothed guy to sell all the items and buy psychic fruits. The protagonist also tells Walu to buy a bigger storage space. Now, Walu would also have to help the boy manage his money. Back in the city, already at home, Ning was eating some psychic fruits, and thousands of them were scattered all over the floor. Walu had part of his body sticking out of a status window. He mentions that Ning was really powerful. He was stuffing himself with psychic fruits. The amount was absurd, so much so that ordinary people could never dream of getting their hands on even half of all that. Ning just pushes the NPC back into the blue window and tells the guy to settle his account. Meanwhile, our boy was already completely full, with system windows popping up, alerting him to consecutive status increases. In the end, Ning not only managed to raise his strength to 25 points, but also his agility and psychic constitution. After that, Ning opens the Apocalypse Sword God system and has it practice the level B skill Shadow Strike. And as always, the skill is raised to the maximum level, becoming an SSS-Rank dimensional/attack. The skill activated in 8 seconds and would affect the entire area around, creating a circular rift at the site of the attack. The boy gets excited and heads off to test his new skill in the ruins of Mingyuch. So, the story takes us to a place full of buildings that were in really bad shape. The system asks if Ning wants to enter the battlefield. After accepting the request, the boy materializes next to 2 warriors. There was a guy named Chun Yong and his little sister, Chun Yao. Both of them were newbies, second-level acts. The girl looked at the protagonist arrogantly, not believing that anyone could really be at the second level, since he was so young. Yong gets angry with his sister and asks her to mind her manners. Ninggu grew thoughtful as he stared at the 2 of them. Judging by their clothes, the siblings must have been second or third generation soldiers in their family. He could have taken out both of them quickly, but decided to ignore this minor conflict. Yong apologizes to Ning. He says that his family spoiled Yao a lot and asks him not to worry, assuring that something like this won't happen again. The protagonist said it was all right and then introduced himself to the siblings. At that moment, the system announced that the challengers would have to fight against 30,000 monster soldiers. That was a special event. Of course, this caught Ning's attention. In the past, he had heard stories that special events, supernatural events, and system events were known as the 3 mysterious events of the end of the world. But this was the first time he had ever encountered this kind of special event. Noticing the boy's concern, Yong tells the protagonist not to worry. This would be a piece of cake. That event wasn't dangerous. It was like a war scenario that kept repeating itself over and over. There were no restrictions in that mission. As long as they could get out of the fight, they could withdraw from the duel at any time. I don't know about that, huh? I'm predicting a colossal mess. Yong reveals that the monsters would only be regular zombies and mutants. Soon, a rain of zombies falls from the sky and fills the streets of the ghost town. Yong calls out for the protagonist. They were supposed to go down and fight the zombies. Ning steps forward, says he'll go first, and jumps off the building. The girl didn't like Ming's attitude and called him arrogant. The creatures were huge, and soon Ning was face to face with a deformed mutant zombie the size of a building. On the ground, there were several other zombies, just wandering aimlessly. Ning didn't hold back. He went on slashing as many zombies as he could with his sword. Watching the protagonist fight, Yong was sure that Ning was a veteran. He took down the monsters in a simple and precise way. The siblings didn't want to be left behind. Yong followed with his axe spear, cutting down the monsters while talking to his sister. He told her to hang in there. If things got tough, they could wake up the undead soldiers to fight for them, maximizing the benefits of the battle. This ability caught Ning's attention. The awakening of the dead was a secret skill used by the military in his past life. That's why he had only heard rumors about it. While fighting, Yong told Ning that this was the military's secret. He asked the young man not to spread this to others. At that moment, a sneaky zombie tried to bite Chun Yong. Alert and quick, Ning threw his dagger at the zombie, hitting the monster right in the head. The man looked at the zombie in shock, but the surprise was actually because of Ning's skill, how he managed to levitate his dagger using psychic energy. With that, the first wave of monsters was over, and the next one would begin in 3 minutes. During the break, Brother Chung offered Ning a cigarette as thanks for saving his life earlier. But Ning politely declined the offer. Cigarettes weren't items that were easy to come by. So, the boy realized that those brothers must be important people in the military encampment. Full of himself, Yong revealed that his grandfather was the vice commander of northern China, and his father is the commander of Security Zone number 191. Both of them were third-level warriors. The boy also revealed that he was forming his own group and invited Ning to join. However, the protagonist didn't even let the young man finish speaking and rejected the offer, since he preferred to work alone. Shocked, Young drops his cigarette and asks why Ning won't accept. He mentions that Ning could become the vice commander right from the start. Plus, his monthly salary would be 3,000 credits. Young would even add another 1,000 credits out of his own pocket. At least someone realized that Ming is talented, since those big-shot military guys are still blind to it. On top of that, the guy was willing to request a blue weapon for Ning for free. Besides that, any of the boy's family members could get a high-ranking military position with benefits. Young's sister approaches the boy. He was going way too far just to recruit someone. Ning simply says he's not interested in any of it. Besides, a large-scale zombie wave was approaching. They should deal with that first. Jumping off the building, Ning says that when he reaches the 3rd level, it'll be the brothers who'll be begging him to recruit them. The guy was left behind looking dumbfounded. The conditions he offered Ning were pretty much the highest level of treatment for someone at the 2nd level. A lot of people were always begging for those terms, but Ning just turned them down like they were nothing. The girl thought Ning was an arrogant snob. The Chung family always recruited the best 2nd-order warriors, and that kid didn't deserve to be one of them. So the next monster wave began, and something was already on the front lines, dealing with a huge mutant. However, he couldn't handle it and asked Yannick to fall back, but the protagonist told the guy to send the monster his way, that he could handle everything. Ning was taking out the zombies without any trouble. Meanwhile, Yao lured the monster toward the boy and quickly hid in one of the alleys. Ning moved forward, ready to massacre them all. The boy's attacks came down like a meteor on all the monsters, slicing them in half as if they were nothing but paper. The siblings were stunned. What the heck? Ning landed countless consecutive blows straight to the creatures' heads, all without attracting the attention of 3rd-level monsters. Now he understood why Ning didn't care about being recruited by him. Yao was left speechless. That attack was stronger than her grandfather's, even stronger than her father's. Seconds later, Ning returned to the rooftops and told the siblings to wake up the undead soldiers. Yao confronts Ning. They didn't need to use that now. The protagonist was already strong enough on his own. They would save that attack to use later. Young grabs his sister's arm. Ning knew exactly what he was doing and decided to follow the boy's orders, raising his axe spear. Young shouted, "My hands!" And then a greenish flame with shades of blue began to emerge from his weapon and his body. Moments later, a huge platoon of undead warriors was on the battlefield. They were even wielding machine guns and were eager for the fight. Watching from the rooftops, as chaos unfolded in the battle between the undead and the zombie monsters, Young revealed to Ning that these undead soldiers wouldn't last long. After finishing off this wave, the monsters would disappear. Ning steps away, mentioning that it was enough time, and asks the siblings to stay there on the rooftops for a little while. The boy starts wandering through the abandoned city. At a certain point, he stops and begins to surround his body with energy. Ning was searching for the legendary blue-level outfit. However, the item still hadn't appeared. He thought that this item would be unlocked as soon as all the monsters from this round were eliminated. So the boy's eyes filled with purple energy. He activated his psychic detection, and Ning began to scan the area with his ability. Soon the boy spots something. He found an item that looked like a notebook. There was a blue ball of energy levitating above the item. Ning picks up the notebook. Reading the cover of the item, Ning mentions the words special mission and last wish. He wonders how all of this was connected to that notebook. Ning examines the notebook. It was the diary of the secretary of the defense line. The secretary reported that the first time the zombie virus appeared, and a horde of corpses revolted, was 60 years ago. On July 7th, the zombie tide had crossed Xinjiang, and the troops were already there to stop them. They recruited a group of new recruits, boys who were very efficient at their work. But the secretary still didn't understand their dialect very well. He needed to work harder to learn it. On July 20th, The secretary wrote that a yen told him the girl he liked was living inside the safe zone, behind the defense lines. The boy was only 17 and was already thinking about getting married. But according to him, the tradition in his hometown was to marry young. On July 24th, there was a failure in the interception. The commander said that if the battle failed, since the secretary was a civilian, he could withdraw earlier. On July 25th, the first horde of zombies began their attack. The man didn't expect it to happen so quickly. A yen, the young man from before, was killed in battle, and in the end, they couldn't even find his body. On the morning of July 26th, the commander asked if the other soldiers wanted to say their last words before the battle. That same commander was killed later, and the secretary didn't even have the chance to ask the man what his last words were. On July 27th, the secretary wrote that he was afraid of dying and that he didn't want that, but he knew that his time had come. And in the end, only a photo of the group smiling was left for history. With the time he had left, the secretary asked all the soldiers still alive for their last words, and they always repeated the same thing. A simple phrase, "Mahans and come back home." Ning read the entire account, and holding the medallion, he wondered about that oath and final wish. The boy clutched the medallion, speaking the words reasons and truths. The scene cuts to the battlefield, and all hell was breaking loose. The siblings remained on top of the building, watching everything. The girl wondered if Ning was on the 3rd level, and if some equipment was hiding his true power. Young didn't know. What he was sure of was that they couldn't fight someone like that. Otherwise, no one would ever know why they died there. Yao asked Young if he would try to eliminate them. Her grandfather would certainly be furious and would hunt Ning down. Young tells the girl to change that mindset, otherwise she would suffer a lot. All they could do now was support the boy and hope that he would be fair. Soon after, Ning returns to the rooftops. Young explains to Ning that his undead soldiers wouldn't last much longer. They should get out of there before the 3rd Order undead arrived. Otherwise, they would be easy prey. Ning asks Young if he knew the true story of that battlefield and how all those soldiers died. Young reveals that, from what he heard from his grandfather, that battle was a total defeat. No one came back alive. It was thanks to the brave warriors who held the front line that his grandfather managed to make it back alive to the safe zone. But there was a dilemma in all of this. Since the battle was a total defeat, how did they wipe out the zombie horde in the end? Young wasn't sure about that, but according to rumors, that zombie horde simply vanished. This makes Ning thoughtful until he comes to a conclusion. The brothers get worried by the boy's expression. Yao didn't know why Ning was asking about these old stories. Finally, Ning asks Young what Mayhan meant. That was a secret word that was passed down within the military squads. Young didn't really know its meaning. The siblings only knew that when they shouted that word, the undead soldiers would appear and fight for them. Acting all tough, the girl says she won't say anything else about the subject, since it's a military secret. Young tries to restrain and calm his sister down. Her inappropriate behavior could get both of them killed. Finally, Ning asks how many times the siblings have used it. Frightened, Young reveals that it's been a few hundred times. They always used it to get good items, but it wasn't possible to use the ability several times in a row. This makes Ning even more thoughtful. In the end, he wanted to know if anyone had ever helped the soldiers eliminate the last wave of monsters. Young reveals that no one has. Since that dungeon appeared, no 3rd-grade warrior has ever gone there. Up until now, the brothers really believed that the boy was on the 3rd level. So Ning jumps off the building, wondering if that's why that relic was still present on the battlefield. She was desperate because of Ning's actions and asks her brother if they should leave the dungeon. On the battlefield, the undead warriors shouted for everyone to fight to protect their homes. That way, they would have a place to return to, but everyone was already completely cornered. While taking out some zombies, Ning thinks that those soldiers were the souls of ancient heroes. He couldn't understand how the military could treat them that way. Ning kept eliminating zombies while thinking that 60 years ago those soldiers were abandoned by the military, and everyone there moved forward to protect their homes. They weren't going to let any zombies get through, but now they've become just a blur in history and no one remembers them. The only thing Ning didn't understand was how the zombie horde disappeared on its own. Because of the prayers of the hero soldiers, that battlefield turned into a special event. As a result, the edge of the zombie horde got trapped there in an endless cycle. Ning thinks that the military knew that once they eliminated the level 3 mutants, everything would disappear and they wouldn't be able to use the secret word anymore. In the end, the word Mayhan carried all the hope of the hero soldiers who gave their lives in the past. At that moment, Ning jumps to slice a big green zombie in half in front of him, and in the background, a bolt of lightning tore through the sky. The protagonist thinks that the soldiers were used by the military thousands of times, but now he would make sure everyone returned home. The rain was pouring down, and on the rooftops, Yao asks if Ning has gone crazy and if he could really take down the level 3 mutants. Young thought that was strange. If the boy could really fight the level 3 mutants, he wouldn't have needed to summon undead soldiers. Besides, Ning should be saving his strength right now, not helping the undead squad. Yao was already desperate. A third-order mutant would show up soon. They should run away, since she wasn't sure if Ning could actually defeat it. Yong looks at Ning, thinking that this really was the best time to leave the dungeon. However, if he left, he wouldn't get the chance to see Ning's fight. Yong decides to wait a little longer. It only took 10 seconds to leave the dungeon. If Ning couldn't handle the beast, they would make a run for it. Suddenly, the whole city starts to shake. It was the 3rd-level beast. The huge mutant stomped on the undead soldiers, who looked like tiny ants under its feet. The beast held a massive club in its hand, and its skin looked extremely tough. The brothers were terrified when they came face to face with a 3rd-level mutant. It was just insane. Ning was right at the mutant's feet, thinking that now he could only use the dimensional slash. He didn't know how effective that attack would be and decided not to fight so recklessly. The boy gripped his sword and decided to attack only when the beast was very close, for his own safety. Ning starts counting. 70 meters away. 59 meters. The giant zombie keeps walking. It was already 40 meters from Ning. The giant raises its club, ready to smash the boy. The protagonist's eyes shine. Now it was time for him to attack. With his attack, the giant zombie was sliced perfectly in half with just one blow. Seconds before activating his ability, the boy looked around and everything seemed to be frozen. Looking at the huge mutant that was standing still, Ning wonders if that was the dimensional slash. Time passed completely differently for Ning compared to everyone else. But that wasn't all. A faint purple aura ran across the protagonist's entire body, and the boy could even see through the monster, spotting all its bones and even the beast's organs. Ning starts walking as he realizes he could choose any spot to materialize his dimensional slash. He jumped onto the huge zombie's body, moving forward until he reached its head. Now Ning understood why the system named this ability Dimensional Slash. With this skill, he could ignore all defenses and deliver a single clean attack. So the boy drove his sword into the creature's head. At that moment, he was completely invincible. After this attack, time began to flow normally again and the enormous zombie beast collapsed to the ground, destroying all the surrounding buildings. The siblings had no idea what had just happened. Yong couldn't believe it. Ning defeated the 3rd-level mutant, a beast capable of destroying the entire safe zone region by itself. It all happened in the blink of an eye. Finally, Yao believed that Ning was skilled and was definitely at the 3rd level. She swallowed her pride as she admitted that her brother was right. Ning was absurdly more powerful than his grandfather and even his father. Frightened, Yong says that he had always watched 3rd-level battles among the military, but nothing compared to what he saw today. The boy wonders if Ning was the 3rd-level veteran. The boy himself was the rarest existence in this entire chaotic world. The system reports that the mission has been completed, and the whole scenario will disappear. The undead warriors who were still standing looked at each other with confused expressions. At that moment, Ning returned to the rooftops beside his brothers. After that, Ning raised the necklace and looking at all the undead soldiers, he frantically shouted the word Mahans over and over again. The soldiers saluted the boy, and their leader said thank you. Confused, Young asks what was happening, but Ning doesn't answer. That place was disappearing. He thought it would be better to leave and talk outside. The system announces the group's exit from the scenario. In the end, the side mission was completed with the final SSS ranking. After this battle, Ning finally reached the true peak strength of the second level. He should have been happy, but his heart didn't feel that way. He was deep in thought. Besides freeing his ancestors, what else could he do for them? The protagonist system announces a new mission, and the final reward would be updated. Now the undead troop could recover their health if Ning took the soldiers back to their homes. I'm not quite sure what all of this means, but this ending made Ning happy. Suddenly, Young approaches the boy. He says that he transferred all the items earned from completing the dungeon to Ning and asks if the boy received everything. Ning just smiled and thanked him for his kindness. All excited, Young invites Ning to have lunch with them in the Zhenjing district. The protagonist rejects the proposal. He needed to take care of something first. He asks Young to help him find out the identities of all the soldiers who were killed in the zombie wave attack. Young contacts his assistant and asks him to find out the origins of the Wang soldiers as quickly as possible. The boy finds out that the soldiers' hometown was 300 kilometers away from there. Young even arranged a helicopter to take the boy there. Ning thanks him, and so the protagonist sets off. Jiao was worried. Could they really let Ning go? Was it really okay to end the battlefield of relics like this? She knew her grandfather wouldn't like this outcome. Young was aware that these events were serious, but he decided to cover up everything that happened on the battlefield and would also take responsibility for it all. He warns his sister not to mention the rewards that were obtained in that dungeon this time. The siblings just watched the aircraft flying across the sky. Jiao knew it made absolutely no difference whether they gave Ning 10,000 or 100,000 dungeon completion points. The boy was truly skilled and didn't show the slightest interest in teaming up with the two of them. She wasn't sure if everything Young was doing for Ning would be worth it, but Young quickly said it was. Not now, but certainly later on, it would be well worth it. Young reminds his little sister that Ning asked for his help to gather some information. This shows that, at the moment, Ning still didn't have much influence in the army. Although Ning didn't talk much, his actions showed that he was a very loyal person. Young knew that to win over someone like that, they needed to truly invest and be sincere. As he flew through the skies holding the necklace, Ning wondered if the heroes of the past were with him now, flying together toward his homeland. That's how they arrived at Zhizhushangshiwe, a small town surrounded by large mountains. With a photo in hand, Ning asks an old man if he remembers those soldiers who left the town about 60 years ago. The boys fought on the front lines during the first zombie wave. Trembling, the old man begins to say the name of each of the young men in the photo. Seeing the old man's reaction, the boy reveals that they have finally come home. In the next scene, a guy shows up saying that he researched everything about the event that happened 60 years ago and only 5 people remembered it. He also brought the village chief so they could both discuss the monument that Ming intended to build there. The boy points to the top of a mountain. He says he will donate 4,000 credits for them to erect a monument with the names of all the heroes who lost their lives on the front lines. The old man thought it was too much. He couldn't accept that. But Ning said the man could use the leftover credits to help the children. The old man was immensely grateful for the young man's kindness. So Ning returns to the ship and looking out the window, he asks the ancestors to rest in peace. At that moment, the system announces that the mission has been completed, and the boy earned 100 reputation points. In addition, there was an extra reward. Now that Medallion could restore life and spiritual abilities by 33%. He also gained a skill that increased weapon effectiveness by 15 points. Ning looked at the medallion and thanked the ancestors for their blessings. He swore to always use the medallion until the day the war was completely won. As for the reward, prestige, it was something that money couldn't buy. Ning thought this could be very useful in the future and would help him to develop his own military power. At that moment, Ning thinks of Yong. He would be a good choice. The boy not only fulfilled all his requests, but also didn't reveal any details about what happened in the dungeon. So Ning decided to reward the young man. Soon after, Yong was stunned. Ning called him. I really thought the protagonist would reward Yong, but the sly boy asked to borrow 2 blue-level items. And here's the thing. They needed to have reduced cooldown times. From the look on the man's face, Ning thought he wouldn't be able to get the items, but Yong quickly cleared up the misunderstanding. Of course he could get them, and he told Ning not to worry. With that, the boy ended the call. Yong was really happy. He thought that Ning was finally starting to trust him. While eating, Ning thought that Yong was truly capable. With the new blue-level equipment, he got a significant boost in all his abilities. Now he could explore high-level dungeons in search of new gear. The boy wanted to advance to the 3rd level and double his attribute points that way. As he walked through the city, the boy thought that in his previous life, he reached the 3rd level with his attributes only in the 20s, which resulted in basic stacks. Now, he was definitely going to raise all his attributes to 31 points before attempting the promotion to the 3rd order. The boy thought this would happen right when the zombie wave was about to break out in the Tianfeng safe zone. At that moment, Ning senses a rank 3 killing intent behind him. There was a pitch-black shadow staring at the protagonist while hiding in one of the alleys. The boy looks back to assess the situation, and several energy tentacles were right next to his face. Ning thought he was really unlucky. All his skills were on cooldown, and facing a level 3 under these conditions would be a death sentence.